How about now? Does that work? That probably works, doesn't it? Check 1 2. Check 1 2. How about now? Does that work? That probably works, doesn't it? It does work, but there is a echo. Check 1 2 is going to happen. Check 1 2. How about now? Does that work? That probably works, doesn't it? It does work, but there is a echo. Check 1 2 is going to happen. Check 1 2. How about now? Does that work? That probably works, doesn't it? It does work, but there is a echo. Check 1 2 is going to happen. Check 1 2. How about now? Does that work? That probably works, doesn't it? It does work, but there's a lot of echo. There is a echo.
Doing that.
Check 1 2 is going to happen. Check 1 2. How about now? Does that work? That probably works, doesn't it? It does work, but there's a lot of echo. There is a echo.
Doing that.
Check 1 2 is going to happen. Check 1 2. How about now? Does that work? That probably works, doesn't it? It does work, but there's a lot of echo.
Is this on loop?
Oh my god. Echo.
It's horrible.
Check 1 2 is going to happen. Check 1 How about now? Does that work? That probably works, doesn't it? It does work, but there's a lot of echo.
Is this on loop?
Oh my god. Echo.
It's horrible.
Check 1 2 is going to happen. Check 1 How about now? Does that work? That probably works, doesn't it? It does work, but there's a lot of echo.
Is this on loop?
Oh my god. Echo.
It's horrible.
Check 1 2 is going to happen. Check 1 How about now? Does that work? That probably works, doesn't it? Holy shit, it's a loop. I know, Serving Hands. I don't know why this is doing this. It shouldn't be. Did that fix it? Thought I was going crazy there for a sec. Yeah, no, I probably had a stroke during that time as well. Seems all good now. Okay, well, that was a horrible introduction, but we're going to bring in our guest. He is a very good friend of mine, Jonathan French. He is an author, self-published author, gone to traditionally published author. So that's one of the things we're going to talk about today. And I hope to God, when I switch scenes, all the audio is still good. Here we go. What's up, dude?
Hey. I bring the gremlins, usually.
You bring the gremlins? No. This was... Something happened the other day. Okay, so I can hear you.
Yeah.
You guys... Still sounds fine. Okay, cool. Fuck it. We're
Awesome.
doing it live. Fingers crossed. All right, good.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure the audio loop was gone. Dude, thank you for coming on the show. I've had a couple requests to have somebody that writes come on. So I've got you this week, and then next week my buddy Brady is coming on, and he is part of the writing room for the show Youngish, I think. Either Youngish or Blackish, but he's in one of the shows. So I'm kind of trying to do more writer stuff. So thank you, first of all.
No, hey, we don't often get the opportunity, so it's at least
I know. Yeah, the last time you and I saw each other was DragonCon
like
2 years ago.
2 or 3. It's been a minute.
It was the last time I went, because we went to the Tiki Room and shit last year, or the last time we went, right?
Yeah. Here's what I remember about that DragonCon. Stan Lee was still alive. That's really all I know. So,
oof.
Yeah, like I mean that's yeah. So I don't know, but
hi, Allie. Sorry.
No,
I will do that every once in a while as well, because somebody will pop on the chat. So I'll say
perfect. No, better to have people here than not, right?
True. Tony just walked in from work and brought me coffee, so it's a good day. I do have some echo. Son of a bitch. Oh. Well, what the hell is that? I don't know why. I don't know why I have echo. Sounds very spooky. Check 1 2. John, talk again for me real quick.
Sure. Hello. How's everybody doing? Am I spooky too? Drew's.
We're not spooky. What if I do this?
What are you doing? Am I spooky too? Drew's.
We're not spooky. Still echo. What if I do this?
What are you doing?
It's like I'm talking to
Am I
Dan.
spooky too? Drew's.
We're not spooky. Still echo. What if I do this?
What are you
It's
doing?
like I'm talking to
Am I
Dan.
spooky too? Drew's.
We're not spooky. Loop is back. Still echo. What if I do this?
What are you
It's
doing?
like I'm talking to
Am I
Dan.
spooky too? Drew's.
We're not spooky. Loop is back. Loop is
Why is
back.
that
Still
doing that?
echo. What if I do this?
What are you
It's
doing?
like I'm talking to
Am I
Dan.
spooky too? Drew's.
I'm so sorry. All right, we're gonna go back to this because a little bit of echo on me is better than what the hell is happening there. It's still going. It's amazing premium entertainment. Shut up, Allie. I don't know why it's happening. This doesn't make any sense. Yes.
So, Miss Cooper is downstairs outside, and all I want to do is yell out the window. What are you doing, creep?
Our neighbors are special.
Ah.
I don't. Oh my god. This worked last time. It all worked. I swear to God. Not. It's not gonna help. What is happening? Why is that? John, say something again for me real quick.
Sure. What's up? Should I start doing dirty limericks? That might help.
I mean, couldn't hurt.
This is my curse. I do this to technology every time.
Like Dresden.
Yep.
You sound fine. I don't, and I don't know why that is.
Stick in an iPhone thing and just see what happens.
Check 1 2. Nope, that's not what I need. Can you still hear me, John? He can't. He can't still hear me. So it's not there.
For a second there, even I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, I was trying to change it somewhere else. Say something again for me?
Sure. I am sorry this is happening.
That doesn't work either. Because then I die. Motherfucker.
Sorry, dude.
No. It's fine. I guess that's. I think that worked. Oh, womp. Okay, so that didn't work. Son of a bitch. Okay. Okay. I'm just going to ask you a question and try and work on this in the background, see if it
Okay.
fixes itself.
Fair enough.
We're not in a call in Discord. None of. Oh my God. None of that should matter. Absolutely none of it. Listening to the system. You're not echoing because that's not sending, but it's sending through. Now, one more second. If I have. Okay, talk again for me.
Sure. Hey, what's up? How's it going?
Fire the sound guy. I know.
You missed working with me when things would go wrong. Admit it.
I absolutely do. Dude, I found. Hang on. One. Yeah, I know. Jonathan does sound great. He does. He absolutely does. But I'm not echoing anymore, right? That's not happening? I sound quiet.
Quiet's not bad. I mean,
Yeah, quiet's not bad. Quiet's probably better for me. That I can change. Okay, why am I still hearing myself? This is bullshit. RTX is still up. I don't know why. I don't know why it's happening. So. No, it's not you. It's not you.
it's me.
I guarantee it's not you.
And that's not me being a narcissist. It's that this is what I do to tech. I'm telling you, this is what I do to tech.
Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can.
But I can't hear you if I do
That one blip.
I still hear myself.
God, it's annoying. Yeah, it's the worst.
Jonathan, tell us about those awesome books behind you.
Yeah. Oh, which ones? I can really do that.
It's serving hands, so probably all of them.
Oh, okay. Well, that is the Discworld shelf, and all of these are the British Corgi paperbacks, because the cover art is way better than anything we ever got in the U.S. At least to my knowledge, as far as that goes. And because I'm post 40 now, I used to be able to tell you the name of this guy, like off the top of my head, and now suddenly his name it completely escapes me. That's sad. But anyway, yeah. So that's those, and then that Savage Sword of Conan omnibus from Marvel, all the black and white. I don't have them all, but that's some of them. There's part of the role playing shelf down there. That's Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay Second Edition and First Edition. That way. This is so hard to do. Like opposite, like Vanna White, Redbox original Beckham D&D, Basic Expert, Master, and Companion and Master. And then I got some random. Let's see. I wrote these. These I wrote. I wrote that one, but I didn't translate it. That's Czech. That's the Czech version of Grey Bastards. I don't know. Merp, Middle Earth Role Playing is up there. He-Man's Sword is right there. So I don't know. That's signed Jeff Easley art right there.
figured this out.
Ooh.
Maybe. Probably not. I'm probably going to fuck it up again. Let's see. Nope, still hear myself. I go into... Check 1, 2.
I can hear you.
Awesome stuff. Which book have you had the longest?
Ooh, the Julk, I probably, what's the contents of that box? Because that's the one I had.
Box.
So that's 86, 87. And I didn't get the Discworld stuff till I moved to the UK when I was 9, and I was born in 80. So this predates anything, because this was the gateway into like all of it. Because this led me to MERP, which, and then I started reading more, and so I was reading Conan comics before I got this, but those issues are in another room. So on this wall, probably Redbox D&D is the thing I've had since I was 6 or 7. And my brother.
What got you into writing, John? Is something on that shelf a catalyst for it?
Well, no, I mean, as you know, I started off wanting to be an actor. That's how Drew and I met. That's how I saw myself. Like, I mean, all through high school, I was theater, hardcore. But I was a terrible student. I was absolutely awful. I didn't do any homework. I never turned in anything. I didn't show up for tests. Sometimes I would just write my name on a test and turn it in. Hated school. Absolutely hated it. But the one thing I always did was my creative writing assignments. I always loved those. I always overwrote them, turned them in way too long. If it was a creative writing assignment, it was one of the few things a teacher could get from me, but it was never a career goal. It was just, it was, if I thought about writing, it was always in the sense of I will one day write my own script. So of course this was the 90s. So Kevin Smith was huge, and we were just in love with Clerks and thought that. So it was always in this vein of I'll write my own script. And so I knew I could write. I knew I'd like to write. I knew I was pretty decent at it, but I didn't see it as like my thing. But I'm obviously a role player, tabletop gamer, and I always wrote my own games. I never ran modules. So I was creative writing kind of all the time. But never really finishing anything other than maybe what was due for school. And so I started writing this one book or started writing this one world for HARP, High Adventure Role Playing, which is sort of Role Master Light. And it was the first time I tried to design a world from the ground up. Everything else was always just like a reskin. And so I kind of had this campaign setting story Bible in development and building. And that was already going on. And then I moved to Chicago, where I met Drew, and I was in a play with Drew. And I just started working on that world as a novel. And then 18 months later, I was done, and I had this manuscript, and Drew and I used to work together on our day job, hanging theater curtains and doing track and lighting and stuff for a company called Northwest Drapery Service. And that job was perfect because it gave us hours, but then there were long kind of rest periods. So sometimes we'd work really hard, 2, 3, 4 days, maybe long days. And then they'd say, we won't need you for the next 4 days, 5 days. Sometimes we go weeks. And it was great because it paid me, but then I would have these long periods of rest where I could just focus on
downtime.
Yeah. And that I've never had that since. I haven't had that ever again. And then I had this guy, Drew, who's in the seat next to me. As far as, we're in a van a lot driving to job sites in Chicago. You get stuck in traffic. And we talk about like everything, right? Movies, women, comic.
I learned so much from this man just sitting next to him, sitting in traffic. Like, I can't begin to tell you the extent of knowledge I gained.
Well, you probably remember more of what I said than I do, because my short-term memory is shot. Like, I don't have any of it. But I was able to sort of spitball off of Drew because we had all of these similar interests. And he's a good listener, and so I was sort of constantly in process and was able to percolate on things I was doing with my first novel. And as he knows, I just once that first manuscript was done, I never wanted to act again. I just had no interest. I mean, I had a callback at Steppenwolf I didn't go to, which my wife still hasn't forgiven me for. So once I had that first manuscript in my pocket, that was it. I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I don't know. I mean, it all does distill down into part of it. The beauty of writing is that anything you do in life, it relates. You can use it. So, here we were hanging drapery and theater curtains and all this stuff. And one of the characters in my first book, what does he do? He cleans tapestries. That's his introduction chapter is he's cleaning a tapestry. The reason being is because I pulled that from the job site with Drew. So, I mean, because those big opera curtains, if all you do is add an image to them, that's a medieval tapestry, right? So, I don't know. It bit hard. And once I realized I could do it, once that first book was in the can, it was like, oh wow, this is possible. That was it. That was it for me.
I think I may have fixed it. You guys hear me?
I'm not hearing your question, Drew. I'm sorry.
You're not hearing me?
It's the first time I haven't been able to hear you. Sorry.
Son of a bitch. You can't hear me, but they can. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I read your lips on that.
Son of a bitch. Okay.
Sorry, everybody. Oh, there you are. Hi.
I don't. Check 1, 2.
Hi.
Check 1, 2. Can you hear me? You can't hear me. All right. I'm just going to deal with the echo on my end.
Sorry, man.
No, it's okay.
I feel bad. It might be.
So, at least I hope it's not coming through. I can't mute it there. Nope. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? This is terrible. Did he ever have any struggles or challenges in world building? Oh my god.
Nope.
Okay.
Sorry about
So Katie asked if you ever had any struggles or challenges in world building.
Yeah, sure. So I guess the first way to answer that is I don't do a ton of outlining. So depending on what your process is, I'm very much what a lot of writers will refer to as a discovery writer or a pantser. You fly by the seat of your pants. But George R. Martin described himself one time as a gardener, where he kind of plants and thinks about some things and he sort of sticks them out in a field and they sort of go over time and he maybe kind of thinks on them a little bit. And that is more true. I mean, I have big ideas and maybe a couple set pieces and I let those sort of stew and boil a little bit, or even simmer or whatever. And sometimes it can be years before they actually hit the page, depending on where I am. But a lot of times I just sit down and I just let it kind of go. So that can be character development, and plot can really come really easily with that. But world building, not so much. At least in my experience, world building is something that you do have to spend some time thinking about and crafting and finding a way to go. So yes, what often happens to me, I have a really hard time not using history as a jumping point. I'm a amateur historian. I love history. I love other cultures. But if you said, okay, give me something that's not an analog to something else, that I can have a real hard time with that. It's why I make a terrible science fiction writer, because for fantasy, you're able, at least I'm able to get inspired by something in the past. So for the Bastards books, that were the books that transitioned me from self to traditional, I was able to take Reconquista era Spain. That was my kind of like inspiration. And I was able to use that and then add some creativity and D&D and all this stuff and mess with it. But when I don't have that springboard, it can be really, really almost impossible for me. And that's not true of every writer. The other thing that can be really crippling is just the idea of, has this been done before? And that's tough, because you can't read everything and you can't know everything. And I can get really paranoid about, you're sitting there in your process and you think you've got something super unique, and just that idea that someone's going to come along. Well, actually, it's already been done and it's done better. And the scary thing is always, has it been done by somebody huge that you just, because there's a lot of really big writers that I don't necessarily read. And that's always a little bit nerve-wracking, is that you're going to do something and then find out later that it looks like you're copying somebody and you were ignorant of it or whatever. So yeah, the world building can be a struggle. It's funny, I didn't have any struggles through my first 2 books, because they were that was the one that I wrote that was based on the role-playing game. So I'd already done a ton of legwork. So I had not something like the Silmarillion, not like a Tolkien Legendarium, not to that extent, but deep for me. And I was able to use it. And then as I was going, because I had that good foundation, it could build on itself and little things could happen, and it was nice. And that still does happen. So yeah, I mean, right now I'm really struggling with it, because I'm done. I finished the Bastards books, right? I mean, they're not all out, but I'm done. My part's over. And so, I'm fortunate in that my publishers just want another book, and they, what do you got? They're eager to see like, what's next after Bastards. And you're in that moment of like, I don't know. So I am struggling with it right now, because it's that idea of what can I do, and what can I do differently? So yeah, absolutely. I totally do.
Are you planning on going back to that original trilogy you were starting?
Right. Yeah.
Like, are they interested in that?
No, they're not. No, my publishers are not. It sucks, because, again, this is going to sound like I'm whining, and I'm really not. I'm in a very good place. But what I need to sort of couch for any writers out there who watch this now or later is that the struggles the rejection is always sort of there, even if it looks on the outside like a writer has made it. There's little rejections that can even happen once you get signed with big agent or big publisher. So no, right now, the Autumn's Fall books, my first 2, which were supposed to be 6 to 8, it was called a saga, and I really wanted to do it. And I have those more outline than anything I've ever done. I mean, those other books are down in outline. But unfortunately, I'm not a guy who can do multiple projects at once. I'm terrible at multitasking. So I write one book at a time, and I'm kind of slow. So Autumn's Fall has been on the back burner for almost 10 years now. And that sucks, because it feels like that I abandoned them, and I do want to go back. But in order to go back to them right now, I would have to tell my publishers and my agent, like, you need to just leave me alone for a year. And that's not really something they want to hear, because, I'm going to do a book 3 in a series that you guys have no interest in. So it's a tricky spot. So yeah, I do want to go back, and it is constantly, kind of bugging me. But right now, I have, the mortgage to pay, and it just doesn't make sense for me to do it. So everybody, the 700 people who have read those books just have to be super patient.
Katie has another question, serving hands. Once you've completed a story or a character arc, is it hard for people not to clamor for more of those characters that they enjoy? you found that?
Yes. I mean, it's going to be interesting in this case for the Bastards books, what the fan reaction is, because it's ending, right? So book 3 is coming out in September and then it's done. I don't tend to, unless I'm contacted directly over email, I try to always respond if people reach out to me directly. But I don't go anywhere looking. I don't go to Reddit. I don't go to Goodreads. I don't read Amazon reader reviews. And that's just me. I'm not saying other authors and writers shouldn't do that, but I don't usually know unless somebody tells me kind of what they're feeling. So there is a lot of ownership of characters. I mean, and you have to take a step back, at least I do, because I have to remember that I'm a creator, but I'm also a consumer. So the stuff that I'm a fan of, you know, I have to remember that, because sometimes people can they feel a little entitled, or it's like, really, like, what's taking you so long? I get those all the time. Like, how come it's getting pushed back? Why is the next one coming out? And so it can be hard to be patient with people, because it gets a little bit, it just feels a little bit aggressive sometimes, or entitled, or whiny, or whatever. But, you know, they're your fans, and you, without them, you don't have the job. So, you know, it's important to remember that. So, yeah, I think that with the Bastards, especially because it's a cult following. I'm not a massive seller. I'm definitely a mid-list fantasy novelist right now, at least domestically. The books do really well in the UK. Like David Hasselhoff, huge in Japan, like whatever, right? So, you know, it's funny because you get ownership of those characters, and they become close, and that's so gratifying. So it is going to be interesting to see if people can accept me writing something else, and if they'll take to it. Because the beauty of a cult following is that while you're not making tons of money, and you're not, you know, swimming in royalty checks and all that, the fans that you have are very devoted, and Bastards fans certainly fall into that category. And so, I mean, I think that I know I've gotten some fan mail over the course. I can't believe this happened to this character, or, you know, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, no, it's a great problem to have, because it means people are connecting. And if, you know, and when you're a character driven author like I am, I'm not a very plot driven author. For me, it is all about the ensemble. And when that's the case, that's very nice, because even though you can't please everybody, just the fact that they care is such a good place to be in.
Yeah, no, I remember when you were telling me about when you were writing this, because Liza was, or maybe it wasn't this, maybe it was Gallantry. Liza was editing for you, and she was like, "There's nothing for me to do, because you keep, like, you're very concise with when you get to where you want."
Right.
Have you had any of that with working with? It's Penguin, right?
Right. Yeah.
Penguin,
yeah.
Have you, like, what kind of editing? I suppose not problems, but like, what kind of editing experience have you had with them?
Okay. Yeah. Great question. So I'm going to name drop here, and it's always a little bit. Editors, a lot of them like to stay kind of invisible. They, you know, it's just that the type of job within the industry is, there's very few of them that want to be talked about in a way that, where you can, like, you know, they like their part of it. They don't like to overshadow the authors. Right. Which is very great. I mean, that's an awesome way to be. But my editor is also the editor of The Martian and Ready Player One. So to say that I'm like his least famous author is not a lie. Like, he is a big deal. And he's a kingmaker. Like, he's done some amazing books. And, you know, it makes a lot of sense, because he found The Martian when it was still being serialized and self-published. So he kept his eye on self-publishing, which is how he found me in the Bastards books, or at least the first one that existed at that point. So, and he's great, but it was very new territory, because here I was, as Drew was saying, my wife has a degree in writing from Columbia University. She knows her stuff, even though they tell you, like, look, don't, you know, if you share a family bond of like, it's, you know, you shouldn't let those people be your editors or your test readers. But when you're married to somebody who's that well trained, you know, and you're a cottage industry, you're on your own as a self-published author, you use the resources you have. And I had one. But as Drew was saying, my process used to be that I don't jump around. I write chapter 1, page 1, and I go and I don't jump. I don't skip. I don't go back. So I write a book in sequence. And I'm not saying that's the best way to do it. I'm not saying it's the right way to do it. I'm saying that's what works for me. And so what would happen is I would write, and however far I got that day, that's how I got. And then the next day I would start with reading that over. So it would be like, okay, I'm going to read what I wrote yesterday. I'm going to edit it. And then I'm going to pick up from there and keep going. So what was happening is that by the time I had written by the time I was writing my second book, my wife was saying, like, you know, there isn't a lot for me to do here. You're kind of already doing the job as you go. Maybe you just don't think about it so hard and write and speed up, and then I can come in. Well, so when I self-published Gray Bastards, it was the same. So then Penguin calls and they're saying, hey, we're interested in this book. Do you have any interest in selling it? So okay. And then we talked. And when you were on that phone call and the guy sort of lets that nugget drop, he's like, well, I don't know if you Googled me. And he wasn't being arrogant, but he was like, I don't know if you Googled me, but, you know, I did The Martian and Ready Player One. And then on the phone, you go, I just need a minute because I think I'm having a stroke, you know. You've been struggling for so long by yourself, and then suddenly someone comes in and wants to really like be on the team who has all this knowledge and experience, and it was just, oh God. And so I felt like I was the weak link in the chain. I felt like that I was any minute because everyone was just better. Right. And so, but Julie and I had a rocky start, and not because we didn't get along or anything, but because we had this book that in my mind, he wanted to bring to like the big world. He wanted to bring it to big New York publishing, and he did, but it had already been out for 2 years. So to me, it was done. Like it was fully formed. And now he wanted to go in and take a look at it again. And I was sitting here going like, ugh. And I told him, I said, look, we can absolutely do that. But here's my only caveat. Like, here's what I have to, you need to understand from right now. If someone owns the self-published copy of The Gray Bastards, I don't want them to have to rebuy it and reread it, because that is, so if we can change, we can tweak, we can polish, but if we like retcon it and overhaul it, and we pull some kind of Star Wars special edition thing or whatever, like it just like, I don't want someone to be lost. I want them to be able to have their old, you know, self-published copy and then move on to the second book without a hitch. And he understood that, and he was cool with it. And the beauty of him is at the end of the day, I have final say. He will say this and the other, but if I push back and I say, no, this is staying in or whatever, he always honors that. And that's not always the case in that relationship. The editors, there are more heavy-handed editors. Where he's good is that he is, I think, in my opinion, a very plot-driven editor, and I'm a very character-driven writer. And I think that makes for a good team, because he's just looking at it a lot differently than me and in a much broader way. And he's very astute, and he picks up on details. So it was a tough thing to get used to as far as that. And it took a while for me to realize that I had somebody that I could email or call, because I just wasn't used to that. Right. It was just doing it myself.
Like,
and
you
so
have support, use it.
Yeah. And really, I didn't get there until like with the first book, because it had already been self-published and I had already done it. It didn't really, whatever. And then we started working on the second one, and I turned in a full draft without his input. And then he took a look at it, and then it was like, okay, let's talk about something. I really had to go through, like the ringer. So we've gotten to a good space now. I'm really excited to keep going with him on the next thing, because the next thing will be so fresh that it's almost like we get a second first chance, you know.
That's awesome. Can you, so from when you decided to self-publish for Autumn's Fall, what did that process look like? Like for just even for the first book?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing I need to say about that is that so much has changed since then. I mean, that was 2012. So 2012, and self-publishing it mutates nightly. I mean, it is a rapidly changing chimera. I mean, self-publishing is so different in the last 10 years. So anything I have to say about it now is all but obsolete. And I'm not saying I won't answer the question, but
yeah,
for me, you know, self-publishing had hit this kind of new height in 2009, and like people were starting to really take a look at it. And so I was even 3 years late to the party in some ways. And in that world, at that point, 3 years was a long time. Like you missed out on quite a bit. But I'm not a technical guy, as Drew knows. I think a lot of people see like a guy my age and they think that he would be all proficient. I'm just not. I'm very, very old school. And a lot of it was daunting. So I had to learn about all of it on the fly. So it's like I had a manuscript, I had a book, and I had it on Microsoft Word, and then it's like, then what? What do you do, right? And at that point, Amazon was a big self-publisher because of Kindle, but they still hadn't merged. They owned CreateSpace, but they hadn't merged with it. So you had to do this thing where it was like, if you wanted paperbacks, you had to do CreateSpace, and then if you wanted ebooks, you had to do Kindle. So, but they were sort of together, and now I think it's all under one umbrella. I think you just hit it. But I had to go to two different places. And then if you wanted to do Smashwords, it was a separate thing. And if you wanted to do Ingram Spark, it was a separate thing. So you had to be an octopus, and I wasn't great at that. I was confident in the book, and I was confident that I knew that I wanted a decent cover. And beyond that, I didn't really know what to do. I was not great at internet marketing. So what it looked like was me sort of diving into these things that I didn't know how to do on the tech side, as far as formatting the book for and then giving Kindle what they wanted. And then just making sure that I was finding the right cover artist. And I lost money. I mean, I had artists take money and run, disappear. I mean, $1,200 just poof, just gone. I had, and I'm not saying that to scare anyone. I mean, it was stuff it was a lesson. I would never, it would never make that mistake again. So it was tough, but what it looked like for me was just figuring out how to get the book into the e-space and then leaving it alone. And to this day, the Autumn's Fall books don't have audio, because at that point, nowadays it's different. But at that point, for self-published authors, audio was practically impossible. I mean, and now it's like, it's a walk in the park, just because the way the technology has gone and the fact that most audiobook narrators are doing it in their home. And, it just comes so far. So what I knew to do was old school. I was like, I'm going to get the book in hand, and then I'm going to hire some artists and get a bunch of paintings done, like good artwork. And then I'm going to hit the con circuit, and I'm going to have this sick display table, and I'm going to like dress it up and have it, all to the nines and look super slick and professional. I'm going to look like a trade show booth. Like, that's what I want to look like. And for me, that was the only way I knew how to do it. And it was like, I'm going to get on panels, and I'm going to try to get people to pay attention. And then I'm going to hand sell the book. And that's what I did for several years. I did 15 conventions in 1 year in 2015, I think, or 2014. And I was and again, that wasn't the right way to do it. It's just the only way I knew how to do it. So at that point, it was just play to your strengths. What do you know how to do? What are you comfortable doing? And then just do that. So
I remember you were all over the place when that was happening. Like, you were bouncing. Like, you were on the East Coast, and you came. I think that's when you came to Comic-Con that first year. Like when we had.
Well, Comic-Con was the first the first thing that I got that they put me on. The Penguin got me that.
Oh, for Bastards. Yeah.
That was the first event that I did after I transitioned. But the year before, or 2 years before, when Bastards came out in October of 2015, the run up to that, I was trying to push hard, and that's when I was all over the Southeast. I was everywhere. I did at least one con a month that year. So,
That's crazy.
But for vendors, that's like nothing. I mean, for vendors, it's like,
yeah, no. We're all over the place all the time.
Yeah. So for an author, it's a lot. For a vendor, it's not. So I was basically kind of splitting the hair between being a vendor and being a guest author.
Yeah. Eric and I know that because we worked for Chessex and we worked for Norse Foundry, and yeah, it's a fun life. Yeah,
we had a break.
Eric is trying to help me fix all my audio shit in the background while this is happening.
Yes.
So you talked about, like, it's different now. Like, is there an app for it now? Like, how easy is it now to self-publish?
Oh, I mean, a millennial and younger could practically do it while taking a nap. I mean, it's just, and I'm not saying that in a negative. Don't mistake. I'm not being that hoity-toity. It's like saying, oh, that makes it plebeian, or, I'm not saying that. I think self-publishing is great. It's fantastic. It's fast. I mean, it's fast. Like you're clicking, you click, and now what can take time is the quality control, right? So I don't even know. I mean, when you say, is there an app? This is how out of the loop I am. So the answer is yes. If you asked me to name them, I couldn't tell you because I'm not in that world anymore. But I know that self-published authors created a network, and they use all of the tools of the internet that they have, Slack and Goodreads and Reddit, and you just name it, on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
Together, and they share information. It's very welcoming. They talk about, here's who you go to for cover artists, here's who you go to for audio, here's who you go to for this. And it's probably, per genre. I'm sure the self-published fantasy people hang out in the self-published romance and horror and erotica, and everybody just sort of congregates and clan and tribes up. And it's great. I mean, it's a community, and and I have a lot of friends who are in it and who make more than I do. Not all of them, and that's not guaranteed. Some people just really hustle and they know how to work it, and then there's luck involved. So yeah, it is, as far as the tech side of it, as far as I want my book to be an ebook, it is very, very, very easy. I want my book to be a print on demand paperback, extraordinarily easy. An audiobook, easy. I mean, where you run into the problems with self-publishing, at least now, and this will change, I'm sure, I don't doubt it. Getting in stores, being shelved regularly in stores, tricky. Hardbacks, tricky. Anything not print on demand in a physical format is tricky. Foreign rights, translation, next to impossible. So, I mean, there are still pitfalls, but as far as making money at it and selling your books, no, it's totally, people doing it every day. I mean, right now. So it's very extraordinarily viable.
Damn it. I had a question and it completely just slipped my mind. What was there was a contest that you entered, and I think, was it for Bastards or was that for something else?
No, it was Bastard. Yeah, Gray Bastard's the first one.
Is that because you won that, right?
Yeah.
Is that how Penguin found you?
Almost. They actually found me before I won. So the thing you're talking about is the self-publishing fantasy blog off, which Spiffbo for short, which the community credits me for coming up with that. I didn't come up with the name, but everyone says I'm the first person to have shortened it to Spiffbo, and I don't actually remember doing that. So I don't know if that's true. Anyway, so Mark Lawrence, who is a traditionally published fantasy author. He's big amongst his fans, you know, Red Sister, and at the time, Prince of Thorns was his thing, and Wheel of Ashheim and all that.
Okay.
Mark Lawrence has never been self-published, and that I think that's what a lot of people get wrong about the contest. Is they think a lot of times you'll look at things that are talking about it, and they'll say, "Oh, self-published author Mark Lawrence started a self-published fan." It's like, no. He was a traditional author that started it. And Mark is a deep thinker, and he's a really smart dude, and he just had this thing where he was like, you know, is it just signal? Is the only difference between traditional and self-publishing just the signal? So he thought, what if I hold a contest where there's no prize, it's just getting eyes on self-publishing fantasy books? So the idea was he just wrangled a bunch of bloggers, book bloggers, to volunteer their time, and he capped the contest at, I think he did this the first year, although I'm not sure, at 300 entrants. So he's like, look, submit your book. Here's the qualifications. Has to be fantasy. Has to be the first in a series. Can't be like a sequel to something. And there are a couple other things, but it wasn't tough, you know. And then send it in, and then I'm going to get 10 bloggers, and each blogger gets 30 books. So that way they read 30 books each, and then they pick one of their 30 that they want to send on to the top 10, and then the 10 bloggers each send one book to the top 10. So that forms the top 10. And then all of the bloggers then read those books. So they go back and read the 9 that the other people picked. They know theirs. And then they vote, and there was a matrix, like, you know, here's who the scores are, like the Olympics, you know, 7.2. And it took over a year. It took a year for this to happen. So I entered the second year. So he'd done it 1 year, and then I entered the second year with Gray Bastards. And I had I had this attitude, and this is what I've said I've said this before, and people are probably sick of hearing me say it, but my attitude was, there is no way I'll make the top 10, but if I make the top 10, I'll win. That was my mission statement, right? And so,
I remember you saying that, actually.
right, and it was kind of just false bravado in some ways, because, you know, you're setting yourself up for, you know, it's a perfect thing to say. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but it's like you're saying, I'm not going to make the top 10, so it doesn't matter. Right. But if I get that lucky,
but
then
if I do make it, I'll win.
There's no way it'll beat me, right? And so that ended up happening. But what was weird about it was, what I didn't know at the time was that my editor, now the Martian guy, he had watched the contest the year before. He had kind of kept his eye on it. And so then the second year, which I was in, he was looking at it again. And so when the top 10 list hit, I don't know that he looked at every book in the top 10, but he definitely looked at the ones that were making waves. And he ended up reading Gray Bastards and liking it. And so he contacted me while the contest was still going on. He actually sent me an email and said, "Hey, you want to talk on the phone?" So, so
I remember that. I remember you telling me about that phone call too.
Yeah. So anyway, and so, you know, so I was talking to him, and then he said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to see how the contest, like, I kind of want, I entered it as a self-published book. I want to see it through." So I got on his radar by being in the top 10. And then I don't want people to think that I got the deal because I won, because that makes it look like if you win Spiffbo, you're going to get a trad deal, which isn't the case.
Right.
And Mark doesn't want that to be the case. Mark doesn't want people entering the contest with this sense of it's a gateway to a traditional deal, because he doesn't, in his mind, and I agree with this, in his mind, that is saying that the only validation to self-publishing is to get a traditional deal. And that's not what he wants to do. And I totally agree with that. There are people who have gotten through Spiffbo, like me, who have gotten trad deals and taken them. There have been people through Spiffbo who have been offered trad deals and not taken them. And I won't name any names because that's their story to tell. But, you know, that's the way the cookie crumbles, and it's just what's right for you. At the time, I wanted to sell out. That was part of my plan, right? I mean, I wanted to experience the other side of the other field. I wanted to see what the grass was like over there. And so when I got the offer, that was good for me. It just so happened that in that instance, my editor said, if you want to do this, can I put you in contact with some agents? Because I would like for you to have one before we start this process. So and then once I got my agent, who he helped introduce me to, then she took over and started doing like the nitty gritty of the negotiations. And so, it was, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to experience like what it was like to have all of those people and to, not be alone. So no, that was and that was 2016. So and Spiffbo continues on. He's had one every year since. And so there continues to be 300 entrants a year, and it just keeps on keeping on. So,
actually, hang on. Eric had a question. So, was your editor kind of assigned to you then when you came on with Penguin, or you had to find one?
My agent or my editor?
Editor. The question behind the question is, how did you go about finding a professional editor? I'm working with a gentleman on finding him one. Eric's doing his book cover.
Okay, got it. Okay, so Eric is the artist who's been commissioned to do the book cover, but the author is looking for an editor.
Exactly.
So in my self-published days, as we were talking about earlier, I was married to a woman with a Ivy League writing degree. So she was my professional editor, but I didn't actually have to go find one. And when I went to Penguin, the editor was the one who basically recruited me, because at Penguin, or at least when you're at the level that he's at, you pursue your own books. So in the Big Five in New York, or now I think it's Big Four because Simon & Schuster got bought. But in New York, London, big publishing, editors are basically have a lot of leeway once they get past a certain point. It's their, like, they get to go after the books they want to pursue. They don't get assigned anything. But for someone like what Eric's talking about, there are now a ton, because the cottage industry has just grown up around self-publishing. I mean, it's nuts now. And there are some amazing people who are editing books as freelancers. And I think it is good.
Time out.
Yeah.
This is for me. Everybody else probably knows what the hell this is. Describe cottage industry. What does that mean?
So it just means that now everyone has sort of noticed that self-publishing has many moving parts, and that just like Eric can do a cover. It's like he's an artist. It's like, okay, so I now know that a book is not just the writing. A book is also the editing and the cover and the audio. And so the cottage industry around it is all the people that make up, who can perform those tasks, right? So, it's not just the author writing the book. It's also the cover designer and the audio narrator and the editor. And so there are now people who are making their living off of self-publishing without being authors. They are making their living by supporting authors or being a cog in that wheel in some way. So just like at a big publishing house, they have all of that in-house. Their cover designers, their editors, everybody's in-house. In self-publishing, you're kind of on your own. So you go to the internet, and it's just sort of like Etsy. It's like, oh, here's a guy who does covers. Here's a guy that does audiobook narration. Here's a guy. And so you just freelance all out, right? And so I have so to answer the question, there are great freelance editors out there whose services are available, and they run the gamut from, I will just do a copy edit, which means I'll spell check and grammar it, or I will do it like all the way to a deep dive. Like I will developmentally edit it, meaning I will help you like fix things and all that. And it's usually a tiered system of payment, right? So, it's like, well, if you just want me to spell check and copy it, it's this price point per word or per page, depending on how they do the breakdown. And then other people will say, okay, but if you really want me to help you develop the book or work kinks out or all that, it's a bit more. I have my puppy's howling. I apologize.
It's okay.
He's going to come through I'm not ignoring him. My son is up there. So all the dog lovers, don't freak out, like in pain. So, I can tell you that there are some amazing editors, and even there are big name people who, not big name, there are people who used to work in big New York and London publishing as editors who are now freelancing. So you can find some people with a lot of chops. I think Jessie Campbell is really good. I don't remember the name of her company off the top of my head. I can look it up. I met her at the Southern Festival of Books in 2015, and she now owns her own company, and she has a staff. So she's at Rough Draft Pub. So RUFF, like a dog going rough. Her Twitter handle is at Rough Draft PUB. She's incredible. I think she's really good.
Did you say ROUFF?
Yeah. Sorry, RUFF, just like a dog going rough.
Rough Draft?
Yeah. So RUFF. Yeah. Draft Pub. I don't know if that's the website or not. Yes, it is. It's roughdraft.pub is the website.
Roughdraft.pub. Oh, it's a public. Got it.
And she's fantastic. I think she's really good. But there are tons out there. Like, that's my kind of plug. But there are certainly people out there. And again, if you join these, if you're a part of these self-publishing groups on Facebook or Slack, or you find it, they're going to be able to steer you to other people. I use this person. Here's what they did. I use this person. That's what they did. Drew, you've met Dirk Ashton. You met him at Dragon Con the year last time we saw
each
it.
Yeah, Dirk's a great guy.
Dirk is a self-published author, and he runs with a crowd of authors who they know all that stuff. They could give you a list as long as my leg, as far as who to use, who to avoid. So yeah, I mean, I think to answer Eric's question for his author, yes, there are professional editors that you can hire, and you can vet them through authors that have used people. So don't just Google it and pick somebody. You can actually like talk to people and say, okay, I need a testimonial on this person. And you're going to pay for it. I mean, but if you got the money and you're budgeting it, then that's what you should definitely do.
Got it. It's down to a single echo now. That's better. Jesus. Did you find any difference in, aside from it just being easier, in the process between Gray and True Bastards?
It was tougher.
Really?
Yeah. So I was in a weird place. I had actually not planned on a sequel to Bastards. I wrote as a one-off because I wanted to get back to Autumn's Fall.
Right.
But I knew from my years in self-publishing that Autumn's Fall was critically, like, people that were reading it really dug it, but no one was reading it. So it was like the people that I could get to read it were like, I loved it, but I didn't become like a self-publishing dynamo like some people. Some people just crush it. And that didn't happen to me. I just didn't market it. I didn't do the right things. So, and I was looking at my sales on Amazon's site, and you could look at like the book 1 of the Autumn's Fall sales, and then you could look at book 2, and it was just like no one was reading book 2. And I had to just take a hard look at that and go, wow, okay. So Bastards was an attempt, because remember, I was doing the con scene, right? Bastards was an attempt to have a one and done on that con table, because a lot of people were coming over saying, oh, I don't commit to fantasy series if they're not finished, which I won't go off on that rant as to why I think that's ridiculous, but they're to each their own. Some people are like that. So it was a sales tactic. I needed to be able to go, okay, you don't want to commit to a big series because it's not done. I have this book, and that's all you need. It's finished. So it was literally a way to make money. Bastards was a money-making decision because I wanted a one and done. And so I took a year to do it and then had it. So then I had this table where it was like, here's my series and here's my one-off. So, but then when the book started doing really well in SPIFFO, when it started performing really well in the contest, I realized that I couldn't let it go at one. I didn't know I was going to win the contest, but I knew that the contest was getting me a lot of readers and was helping jumpstart. Maybe I could become a self-publishing extravaganza, self-publishing success, because SPIFFO was doing what Mark said it would do, which is just getting eyes on the books. So the idea was, okay, so what happened was I spent like all of 2016. So I had published Bastards at the end of 2015. And then I spent all of 2016 working on Autumn's Fall 3. But I only got like 40,000 words done. I got very little done that year. It was, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to piss anyone off, but 2016 was a tough year depending on what your politics were. and so like, you know, it was just a tough year. And so, you know, I didn't have a great writing year, 2016. So in 2017, I hadn't won SPIFFO yet, but I said, I'm not going to have another year like I can't. So I started writing Bastards 2, knowing that I had not finished Autumn's Fall 3. I don't want to lose anyone. I'm kind of rambling, but the point of the story, to answer your question, is that Bastards 2 was already almost 3/4 finished when Penguin came calling. So I had a weird thing where it was like, I knew at that point that they were going to take the first book. So then I had this discussion with my new agent, and she said, well, what's going on with this book? And I said, well, I have the sequel almost done. And she goes, oh, okay, wow. So what do you want to do there? I said, well, you tell me. She goes, well, let's try to sell both of them. Let's see if they'll take them both as a package deal. So I said, okay, because I was just listening to the advice I was being given by these awesome professionals, right? So she did. She packaged them and said, hey, we know you want book 1. We're going to offer you book 1 and book 2 as long as the money's right. And Penguin said, cool, we'll take 2 books. And the money was life-changing. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I had heard horror stories, you know, and again, you know, you don't know because you have no idea what that offers. I had no clue what to expect. So I was sitting there looking at my wife like, what do you think? They're going to give us 7,000, 10,000? What do you think they're going to give us? And it ended up just like, we were speechless when my agent was on the speakerphone and said what they had offered. I mean, it was just like, okay. And at that point, it was like, we can't say no to this. This is ridiculous. So what happened was I ended up with, like I told you before, I was working on a book that I felt was finished, and now they wanted to take a second look at it. That was Grey Bastards, book 1. But I also knew that book 2 was almost done, but I didn't want to be in that situation again, right? So I was like, I don't want to finish book 2 and then have to like go back and redo it. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to let it go. So I just started working with them on repackaging book 1 and left True Bastards alone for like almost a year. I didn't even touch it.
Okay.
And that was a mistake. That was a huge mistake because by the time I came back to it, I was second guessing everything. I was just, I just got in my head about it. Excuse me. And I was really happy with the first, 2/3. And then I started working on that last third, last fourth. And I just kind of lost my mind. I was like, I don't know what to do. And I was in this new big publishing machine and dealing with a launch and working with all these people. And it was all, again, the weakest link in the chain. I'm not blaming anybody.
Yeah.
And so, so True Bastards was tough. So that's the first time, and now so far the only time, that I have done multiple drafts. I've never done that. I always do one draft and then I kind of revise, but I don't ever like rewrite a book. I don't ever make massive changes. True Bastards, I rewrote it like 3 times. Not top to bottom, but like, the ending changed 3 different times. I moved stuff around. I was like pulling chapter. I couldn't tell you now what draft is on the shelves. No idea.
Now, when you say you changed it 3 different times, did the story change, or just the layout, or
Both.
all of it?
All of it.
Damn.
One time it ended in this like crazy cliffhanger. I mean, like a full on like, wait, what? Like there was no real ending. It was just like you can guess, and then it was insane. No, it was that book was so far the worst. That I mean, I lost years of my life to the stress of finishing that book. It was brutal, and it was just me. It was just me dealing with a new phase of life. It was like in some ways it was great. I got to buy a house and my wife had a great job and suddenly I had this career, but then I just got panicked. All this anxiety hit and all this pressure. And, you're finding out that the first book is coming out in hardback and it's getting translations into foreign languages. And you just, I don't know. I couldn't compartmentalize. I couldn't really, I'm proud of the book that's out. I mean, I'm joking and saying I couldn't tell you what draft. I mean, I know what happens in the book, but I'm really proud of what we did. But it was tough. I got kind of teased because you've probably heard this. You hear it in bands in recording. The sophomore effort, the second album, it's always cursed, right? And all of my editors and my agent were like, "Yeah, well, that's a second book for you." And I was like, "Guys, this is my 4th book. Like, this isn't my 2nd book. I've written 4 books. Like, I wrote 2. Bastards was my 3rd." And then, so I said, and they said, "Well, 2nd book in a series." I'm like, "I've done that too."
Twice now.
I've done that too. And quite frankly, arrogantly, the 2nd book of Autumn's Fall is what I think is my best book of all time. Like, I think that's the best thing I've ever written. I honestly think it's the best thing I'll ever write. I don't think I'll be able to top that book. And so
I don't own that. That's Bantam Flynn, right?
That's Bantam Flynn, yeah. Yeah.
I need to pick that one up because I haven't gotten it yet. In fact, my True Bastards copy is an advanced copy.
The white one? Is it white?
I think so.
Just has no cover. It's just like
yeah,
blank. Yeah.
Is that the released book?
The blank one? No. So
I think it. Hang on. No. Well,
that's
I know it has a cover and everything.
Oh, right.
But the I meant, is that the same? Like, is the story the same, or was that? Like
I see what you're saying. Yes. No. Yeah. Like you're talking about ARC's advanced reader copies. They're usually like 95. It's like there's maybe a couple spelling mistakes and maybe a continuity error. It's like 1 or 2 passes, depending on where they are in the production phase and how
okay.
that is. Yeah. But no, if you've read the arc of anything, it's usually okay. You're not going to be too long.
Okay. No new questions yet. We got it down to 1 echo. Eric, you're a fucking G. I appreciate everything you do. We're gonna have to do a full fucking audio overhaul after this. I don't understand what the deal is.
You're gonna have to post loop all your own stuff. You're gonna have to go back through and rewrite.
So weird, dude.
ADR yourself.
Go in and like just cut out the first 20 minutes of this where no one was talking or nothing was.
Yeah. Sorry.
I apologize again, dude.
It
happened last week and I thought I had it figured and then it didn't work again. Fucking bullshit. So for this next book coming out, like, is it? You said it's done, right? You turned it in. It's finished.
Yeah, I'm done. My part in it is over.
How many drafts did you do with this one? 2? Okay.
Yeah. Well, let me think. No, that's not true. I'm lying. I really only did 1 because what I really only did 1. I had to think about that. This book was the first time I ever jumped. I never usually leave a gap. And like, cause a lot of authors, they say, if you don't know, don't get stuck, just keep going and come back to it. I never did that before. But this book I did. This book I got kind of stuck. And I thought, all right, I'm just going to jump to where I know and then right to the end and then double back. So what happened was I did that. I got kind of hung up, and then I jumped to chapter 2 and then finished it and then doubled back. And then when I doubled back and filled it in, I realized I kind of had to tweak some stuff. So it was like a draft 0.25. Like it was like a draft and a quarter.
Okay.
But it wasn't anywhere near as difficult as book 2. The tough thing about book 3 was that I thought I was writing a 3 of 4. And then I found out that I was writing the final one because they told me, they were like, no, we're not doing a 4th one. And I was like, oh. Well, so that was kind of the big thing with this one. Yeah.
Was Bastards, like when you found out you were doing more than one, were you originally planning on doing 4?
No, and that's why I was kind of okay, because like for Bastards readers, it's, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but not that anybody is gonna care, but there's kind of a trio of characters. I kind of have a Ron and a Harry, Ron, and a Hermione, and for lack of a better way of putting it. And it changes narrators with each book. So,
yeah,
it's like, and so it was pretty obvious once we got to, even though a lot of people were thrown with book 2, they were like, wait, Jackal's not the POV character of book 2. This is weird.
And can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. When I started reading, I was like, wait, is this from Fetch's point of view? Which, full disclosure, I'm like you. I'm terrible at reading other things. I haven't finished it yet. Sorry.
It's all good. You're not alone.
But like, yeah, I started reading. I was like, what is? But then, like, I started getting into it. I was like, okay, cool. And then I found out the third book was from Oates' point of view. I was like, what?
Now I got to finish too. Yeah. Yeah. So again, like initially it was like, okay, this makes sense. Like the trio and so so I thought 3, but then I had what I thought was a great idea. I just ended up with more story. I ended up with like way more plot and story and things I wanted to do. So I thought, okay, I have a solid idea for a 4th one. And at the time I honestly thought they would take it. But it didn't, the series didn't go gangbusters. It didn't do what they wanted it to do. And that's just the nature of the business and the beast, and it happens. So they said, look,
can I ask what the idea for the 4th book was? Spoiler.
We'll talk about it once you read the other 2.
Okay. Fair enough.
then I'll and the thing is, I might still do it. Like, here's the thing. Like, what was great, I don't want to be all down about it. What was great was that when I found out that 3 of 4, that it was 3 and done, that it was the end, at least for now, I kind of panicked a little bit because I was like, oh God, does this book even work as an ending to the series? And that's when I really had to trust, because my editor and my agent both were saying, you don't have to change anything. This caps it off. This is great. And I said, are you sure? Because I was kind of writing it thinking there was going to be more after this. And they're like, well, look, the potential for more is there, and we can let that be. But they said, but the story still wraps up. The characters still wrap up. This part of it still wraps up. And so my thing is, look, like, unfortunately, the way fiction and books are right now, some people just explode out of the gate and then others don't. And, if you end up getting some kind of screen adaptation, then you go right back. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, so
movie deal, we need to write more books.
That's everyone knows that, but no one likes to talk about it because screen deals are rare, right? I mean, and you can get optioned a bunch and then never see production, right? So it's tricky, but I think my thing is, I'm not going to say, well, there's definitely going to be a 4th one, but what's great is that the story is still there and I don't have to change anything to do it. And I didn't have to rewrite 3 to make it work. I can just pick right back up and it'll work. And so if there's ever a call for it, if ever somebody says like, no, we need that 4th Bastards book, I'm good to go. And that's nice because it means that right now I can do something different. I can take a breather from it. I can get out of that for a while and do something fresh and exciting and see what happens with it. And if that ends up being the one, then great, whatever. The sort of the beauty of writing now, unlike before, back in the day, when things went out of print, they were gone. Well, nowadays, your book may not be sitting on Barnes & Noble. It may not be what Barnes & Noble stocks in their limited shelf space, because they don't stock everything. They can't. Maybe you're not constantly on the shelf with Steven Erikson and Tolkien and, all those people, but you're still an ebook and you're still an audiobook, and that's not going anywhere. Publishers aren't going to pull something out of print now, right? It's just so everything, it builds on itself. So those building blocks, those books are still there. And it's nice. It's nice to know that they're sitting there still being found, and people will still continue to discover them. And who knows? But yeah.
It was the last Gen Con. Because I was hanging at Norse Foundry's booth, just talking to Drew, the owner.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just chatting about like me possibly coming to work for him in the next year to work dice and stuff. Actually, I don't think it was the last Gen Con. I think it was the one before it. But we're chatting, and fucking Joe Manganiello walks up. It's like, "Hey, Drew, how's it going?" And I was like, "What's up, dude?" He's like, Drew. I was like, "Obviously, you have to talk, so I'll let you go." And I walked away, and I was like, "God damn it! I should have asked if he's read Gray Bastards yet." Fuck.
It's not the first. So I did Miami Book Fair. Was like when Bastards went to Penguin, they tried to do like as much as they could, but I think I only went to 3 events. They got me in 3 events. And so I did San Diego Comic-Con, and then I did Miami Book Fair. And that year I didn't realize, I was very ignorant. I didn't realize how big of a deal Miami Book Fair was. I mean, if you're in the industry, but I was clueless. Like, I had no clue that is a big get. Like, that's a big show. And so I got to do it, and I was only on one panel. But the panel that I was on, one of the other guys on there it was Michael Whitwer, and he was one of the co-authors of the Arts and Arcana History of Art in D&D book, that super gorgeous.
Oh, yeah. That's
not down here.
Diesel did the forward to, right?
No, Manganiello did.
Oh, that's right. I'm thinking of one.
Or Manganiello. Sorry, Joe did it.
40th anniversary or something.
So because Joe had done that, and Michael and I hit it off. Like, Michael was great, and so we're just, discussing D&D. Like, we got a drink after the panel, and we're just discussing D&D, and he goes, "I got to get Joe your book." He's like, "I'm going to try to get Joe back." He's like, "Joe would eat that alive." So everyone is trying, and it's not happening. And he has become such a figurehead that I'm sure he's just buried in stuff, but who has the time between all the stuff he's got to read? But yeah, I'm still hoping that you get that celebrity nerd, Patton Oswalt, somebody, but we all hope for that. I
know, right? I got to meet Patton on, I was PAing on Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. because he's been doing, do you know who Michael Shea is? The author, Michael Shea. He passed recently, but he was San Francisco based. He did a lot of, he would write in like the vein of Stephen King and like H.P. Lovecraft.
Okay.
But he was like a modern day Lovecraftian writer, and he, like, Tsathoggua was one of the big pinnacles in his stories, like one of the big bads.
Right.
But it was all based like West Coast San Francisco stuff, and like he and Patton actually became friends because Patton Oswalt is he's a huge reader and
Mhm.
movie go. Like he wrote a book about growing up being taught lessons by movies. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, he was talking about it on off camera. Yeah, I haven't read it yet, but
But we were talking, and it caught my interest because the podcast that I read for sometimes, HP Podcraft, the Lovecraft one.
Mhm.
I remember you and I were in the van talking. We hadn't seen each other for a little while, and we were talking, and I was talking about. I think I brought up Howard, and you just looked at me. He's like, "When the hell did you become intelligent?" And I was like, "I'm listening to a podcast." But that's the podcast. Well, anyway, Patton has been a long time listener. Like, I think he started listening around the same time I did.
Oh, okay.
Holy shit. But he's been hosting some of the, like, he's been co-hosting some of the episodes with him, and they're all dealing with Michael Shea. It's like, it's like his movie.
Right.
So I got to meet him, and I was like, dude, I gotta say, some of my favorite episodes of HP Podcraft have been the ones you've been hosting. He's like, oh, thanks, man. I was like, yeah, I read for him sometimes. He's like, you do? What's your name? I was like, Andrew Staten. He was like, Andrew Staten. And he was getting in the van to go back to base camp at the time, but I was like, oh, God damn it, you're leaving. I was just about to get into a conversation with you.
Yeah, you know. Yeah, you know, exactly.
It's just
so
lightning in a bottle. It's like everything else to do with any of this industry bullshit.
No, exactly. I mean, I've already gotten my hard lesson in it. I thought I had it. I got real close, and then no.
Yeah. Oh God. You're talking. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. It sucks.
I watched a bunch of those the other day, and I was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Sorry to be cryptic, everybody.
No, I mean, it just means that, and you get warned. Like my literary agent warned me. She said, look, if you have a fantasy sci-fi book, there's going to be interest. People are going to, but she goes, you can't count on it. All you can really do is just see it as a lottery ticket and just hope. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing how you can get deep in and feel like that it's going somewhere and see like pre-production art and design and see your book life and I can't share it with anybody, can't talk about it, can't say anybody involved, like, and it's not that I have signed an NDA, it's just it's looked down on. It just like no one wants you to be like that person who's complaining about an industry professional, but
yeah,
but they will they dance with their hand on your ass and then poof, just disappear, and it's like, yeah, ghosted completely. And
their hand on your ass. And
oh, I mean, it's
oh God, I miss you so
much,
John.
But it sucks because it's like, what blows is that then it's that never meet your heroes thing. It's like,
yeah,
I had to like burn my copy of Deadpool. I was just like, and I've said too much now, but like, I was like, fuck this. Like, I can't watch this movie anymore because now I have this personal connection to somebody. It just sucks. It just sucks. Like, but you just kind of go, okay, I'll never know what happened, and it didn't, and we'll just keep on keeping on. We'll just hope it comes back around.
Yeah. What God, I would love to see Bastards of the movie. Obviously you would too, but like just the cinematic scope of what that would look like is just fucking baller. For those of you that haven't read the books or don't know what we're talking about, it's a trilogy that's basically like Sons of Anarchy, but Direboar riding half-orcs that are just fucking G's. Like, so good.
It's fun.
Man. Can you give like the elevator pitch of what the trilogy's about, John?
That was it. You just did it. I mean,
okay, yeah.
I mean, look, the only way I put it is like take Middle Earth and then make it a spaghetti Western and make all of the races, instead of being classic Tolkien, they're like, take orcs and elves and hobbits and then meet them after a drunken night of bad decisions. Like that's it. Like,
oh God,
everybody's just dirty and messed up and, you know, horny, and I don't know. I mean, it's everything you love, everything I love about classic fantasy that in the literary world has kind of fallen out of favor. And people, I've said that in panels, and like I see faces like readers like shake their head like, no, it hasn't. I'm like, because you're reading franchise fiction, because you're still reading Warcraft like novels, and you're still reading like deep books, and that's fine. Like R.A. Salvatore is a fucking man. Like, I mean, he is a mensch. There's nothing wrong with any of that stuff. But when you're talking about like the big benchmark original series, like not anything that's based on a property, not anything licensed, but when you're all of that, all of the big Game of Thrones, the Name of the Wind, all of the elves and hobbits and orcs, that fell out of favor a long time ago. That hasn't been popular forever. And it's been very human-centric fantasy. Everything's been very bending, like it's high magic, but there's not a lot of monsters and characters, especially not sentient ones that are part of it. Like, yeah, Game of Thrones has dragons and a couple other things, but all of the POV characters are human, right? So, and even my editor, he said, you know, if you'd have told me, when he called me, he said, if you'd have told me that somebody had written a fantasy book with the classic Tolkien races in it, and I was going to like it, if you'd have told me that 2 weeks ago, I would have said you were crazy. You know, he said, no one makes that work anymore. But well, my cat now is deciding to chime in. But Josie, you're so fat. Go away. Yeah, I love you. Go away. So I mean,
pick it up. As soon as the cat comes on, it'll up our viewership by probably 20.
Oh yeah, except she'll kill me. She doesn't. She has an attitude. But no, I mean, I think all I did was do what most people should do, which is just write what you want to read. And I love a lot of the big benchmark fantasy that's out there. I think it's fantastic. But there was always sometimes I wanted to read, I wanted an orc in a book. I wanted a dwarf in a book. And I didn't want to have to go to a licensed property book to experience that. I wanted to see it done with an original take and not as a spinoff or you know. And so, I mean, I could read a Warhammer book, I could read a Warcraft book, but I wanted to read something else. And so that's what I did. And at the time, people thought I had done it in a unique way that made it interesting again. And then they bet on it. They decided, let's put some money behind it and see what happens. Apparently the timing was still wrong. I mean, apparently it's just, and it's signal versus noise. You can't, it's hard to break through. It's amazing how more people are talking about the fact that Martin still hasn't written another book than they're talking about new books. And you just want to like scream. It's like, why is everyone still talking about that over there when there are tons of authors out there who are putting out new stuff every day? And and of course there are book bloggers who are doing a fantastic job of showcasing new and original stuff. And there are people really fighting the good fight, and it's good. So, you know, but yeah, I don't know. It was fun to write. I love the characters. I love the world. I hope I can get to play in it again. And for those people who took a chance on it and dug it, I mean, I'm indebted to them. I'm so grateful because I'm still able to do this full time. So,
no, absolutely.
I mean, movie deals aside and all that. I mean, come on, I don't have a boss. So this is the dream. I mean, so it's good. It's really good.
You said when you were talking about it was based off a campaign setting, are you talking about Bastards or were you talking about Autumn's Fall?
I was mostly talking about Autumn's Fall. So Bastards started to be, I think 5th edition D&D had just come out, and I was really just, I was excited, that nostalgia. We wanted get in and dig in and see what it was like. But I have such a problem with modules. I mean, I think there are some great module writers. There are some stellar ones out there. It's not that I think modules are bad. It's a something up. Johnny just
sorry.
shut up.
No, Eric just said something. He said he should come play in Athantia next season. Would you be down to play a character on a stream sometime?
Hell yeah, I'm good with that. I've never done it, but
I will definitely talk to him about it, Eric.
Is that y'all's homebrew stream?
Yeah, it's Eric's World, which we've been playing. It's the one that I was playing in when I would go up to Milwaukee on the weekends.
Okay.
It's the soul punk Victorian horror setting, but like this stream is basically it coming out to the world so that people can see what it's all about.
Cool.
And we did 13 episodes and then 12 side quests, so 25 total. Like the main episodes are all of us, like the full cast, which is 4 people plus Eric GMing, and then the side quest is usually like 1 to 2 of us. It's a lot shorter. Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah,
I mean, I'm down to clown. Yeah, sure. No, I'm a much like. I always ended up GMing almost out of necessity. Like I don't think I'm all that strong at it, right? I'm not very organized, and so, but I'm a player at heart, and I always have more fun doing that. But I was always the guy who had the book, spent the money on it, who knew what was coming out. I always had my finger on the pulse. I go to Gen Con. Most of my other gaming friends, at least in Atlanta, in Chicago is a different story. In Chicago, I was the clueless one. Like my friends were amazing; they knew everything. I was the ignorant one. But when I got to Atlanta, it was like I was sort of the godfather of the group. And so, but no, Bastard started off as like, I'm gonna run this just in 5e because Half Orc was a race again. I mean, it wasn't 3, it disappeared in 2 for a while, but and I just thought this will be fun. And it was my wife that basically said, like, she just looked at me, she said, you're gonna spend how many hours coming up with all this original gaming stuff when you could spend that same time just as a novel? And she said, why don't you just do that? And I wasn't really convinced. I thought, so, I wrote the first chapter. That was it. And the first chapter, very much the same as it is now. It's not different. There's not a lot of difference. And that first chapter in Grey Bastards, that's what I wrote, and I gave it to her. And she read it, and she goes, there's something here. She goes, this is fantastic. She goes, you got to keep going. And so I was like, and I kind of knew it. I was like, yeah, you're right. There really is something here. So, it was fun. So yeah, everything for me sort of starts there, I guess just because was my training in storytelling, right? I mean, my training in storytelling started with gaming. So
yeah, absolutely.
You just go with what you know. And hopefully I think the thing for me is to try not to get stuck in a rut, though. Like, honor that, acknowledge that, and know that, but don't just do that. Like, push yourself, try to read broadly, try to expose yourself to new things, and try to put more tools in your arsenal. So yeah, but at the end of the day, I mean, when the going gets tough, I go right back to that mindset of character and world creation. So
that's actually, I mean, that's what got me into gaming to begin with, because I was doing theater stuff before I actually started playing D&D, or at least until I realized I was playing D&D.
Right.
Because like we played, my buddy Luke had Hero Quest, and we went through that whole book and the Witchlord book, and we were out of stuff. So I just started, because he was running me in it, and I was like, well, what if we could just make stuff up? Because like they had the blank ones in the back, and I was like, well, we could put this here and this here. And then for a school project, I think it was in 7th grade, we had to make a game, or we had to make something as a product.
Right.
So I basically like I copied a whole bunch of shit from Hero Quest, like the styles of the armor, but like I named them different things, and I put in like unique items, and then I used an old shirt box and that was the game box. And like I took a checkerboard and I put paper over it, painted a new map. But I was basically playing D&D and not realizing it.
Yeah.
And I got my first chance to actually play D&D. I was like, oh shit, this is.
Uh,
I want to do this. I want to play this. And like, because it basically hit me as like it's basically like an improv game.
Yeah.
Around a table, and that's what sucked me in, and that has become such a catalyst for storytelling for me nowadays.
Absolutely,
it's a huge part of it.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, and it used to be that just about every fantasy novelist you would talk to had some experience with it, or it was part of their story in some way. And then we hit this weird. I feel like we hit this strange, like, funny how trends sort of, because gaming took a dip, right? Like that we ended up with a bunch of fantasy authors who've never played, and I'm meeting them now, and it's really funny how. But now gaming is on the rise again, so it's interesting how there are careers that are taking off where fantasy writers, where gaming, D&D, that kind of stuff has no bearing on them at all, and it's really cool to see that. But I think the next crop, in the next generation, will be right the opposite because it's so big again. So it's I find it fascinating.
Yeah, the crossover. I mean, just the communication from in our generation, like starting with fucking rotary dial phones to where we are now.
Right.
My buddy Kale, I think we've had this conversation, but like my buddy Kale said something to me years ago that still sticks with me. He's like, if you think about it, from the day the Wright brothers flew to the day we landed on the moon is less than 60 years. It's one generation. And that blows my fucking mind.
Oh, absolutely.
Just the leaps and bounds we make with technology. And just what it's done for communication in general.
Yep.
Is mind-boggling.
Oh yeah, and it permeates everything. I mean, that's exactly what I was saying about how the self-publishing world is, because the systems around it, the delivery systems around it, are changing so fast that's why it is constantly mutating, and you really got to hustle to keep up with it. I mean, it's tough. It's hard, but it's true. I mean, I'm my son's history teacher right now because he's homeschooled, and he wanted to study the Ice Age. So we built an atlatl, and because I wanted to show him what they had before bow and arrow. So we actually constructed an atlatl, and I wasn't sure. I'd never actually used one. I wasn't sure it was going to work. And we got out there, and I was showing him. I said, we're on our back deck into our backyard. I said, all right, let's just throw these spears as far as we can with our arms, see how we do. And we were tracking them. And then I said, all right, let's use the atlatl. And after some practice, that thing went nuts. And I told my son, I said, well, that from what, it's hard to say that far back, but we're pretty sure that this was it for 5,000 years.
What was the range increase? It's like 300% or something.
So it depends. So I don't know about, like, I can tell you for our personal. So, my son is 9, or he's about to turn 9. So his was like he got 25% farther. Okay. I got about 33% farther. And then my wife comes out, who has dancer training, and proves that everything is about form. It's not about anything else. It's not about like heaving it it's just getting the right. She lazily just did this perfect form, 4 times as far as she could throw it. I mean, just a perfect, like, I mean, it was, and when I saw it, I was like, there it is. Like, I mean, it's never all about, it doesn't matter what you're talking about, fighting, it's rarely strength, it's form. I mean, she's perfect. And so, so we know we got 4 times as far, with this homemade, thing. But when just 60 years from first in flight to the moon, but at least 5,000 from the atlatl to the bow and arrow.
To the bow and arrow.
I mean, that's mind-boggling. That's absolutely,
that's nuts.
It's nuts. So, and that was a good lesson. Like, he really kind of like plugged in, like, geez, stuff takes a long time back then. Heck yeah.
Well, I mean, it's so. How long was Rome around?
So you're looking at well, they died. They basically the Western Empire fell in like 475, and they came up right after Greece, and Greece was over like 140s, maybe. No, I'm wrong. I don't know. I'll have to look.
Roughly 800 years.
I don't want to say for sure. My classical antiquity is not what it was, and I've slept since I learned it, and that's always a problem. I wake up and the world resets. It's sad because I'm teaching my son ancient Greece right now, but we haven't gotten to Rome. I mean, yeah. So I mean, Hadrian's Wall was built in like 140, right? So AD. So that's Rome. So yeah. I don't remember. I don't know their rise. That's my big problem. We know it was before year zero because because they're the guys who started the years over by crucifying this Jewish guy. So, I mean, we know that.
Former defensive fortification of the Roman province in Britannia begun in AD 122.
Hadrian's Wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, finished around 140, I think. And then I just don't know when Rome started. That's my problem. I kind of know I know it fell about 475, and of course Byzantium lasted for a while longer. But yeah. Anyway, I guess I could just Google it.
Yeah, right. It's 753 BC. City of Rome is founded. Julius Caesar is assassinated in 44 BC.
Yeah.
So
there were quite a few guys after him, but
yeah. So just over 700 years.
Sounds
basically
right.
From
Dr. Google.
But like that's even 700 years. Like that civilization was around for that long, and ours has been around for.
I mean, it depends on what you mean by hours, right? I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, civilization is, well, even as we know it, depending on how you talk to, could be 20 years. But I mean, even from Victorian standards, like 1800s, 1900s, things have only been in the current technological state. I mean, that's not even true, but like if you think about when the first automobile was created,
right?
Because I mean, that really is a defining moment in history, because it just mass transit, aside from horseback,
Right.
that's been, what was the Model T, or what was the first automobile? Like
19. They were around before the turn of the century, so you're looking at those horseless carriages in the 1890s, yeah.
And that's just.
There's a crazy article that my dad turned me on to years ago, that the number of car companies that went out of business that came and went in just the first like 25 years, and it's it's nuts in America, just America. Like you look at this list of companies that rose and fell, and you think like, oh, a couple dozen. It's hundreds. It's just like all these car companies just like sprouted up and died. It's amazing. But yeah, no, it's insane. I mean, look at this. This is what we're doing. Is Star Trek the original series? We're just not in space. Like we're talking green to the other one, and that was sci-fi, right? No, it's
1886 Model T, available in 1908. Oh, thanks, Ether. Allie, can you hear me now? Is that better? God, I am quiet. How about now? Is that better? Check 1 2. Turn my gain a little bit. Oh, that's so low. It's the RTX volume. I mean, it's pretty much all the way up too. How about that? Is that better? Yep, and wave. Got it. Tiny bit. Turn that back down. There we go. Boom. All right, cool. Much. Okay, good. But I mean, that's just over, it's just over 120 years. And Rome is around for 700. Like, so our civilization as we know it, and I say that just based off the automobile, like there's so much that has happened in the last 120 years. And communication is revolved around that. Or wrapped around it, really. And it's just, it boggles me to think where we're going to be in the next 20.
Yeah, no, I can't. I mean, I'm terrible at like predicting that sort of thing. I'd make a better sci-fi writer if I could, but there's a lot of people in the brain for that.
Ether, you're, well, actually, hang on. I gotta go back up. It's the only positive thing that has come out of COVID. Oh, streaming? Yeah. No, that's true. Recording, be right back. Question 2. Do you have a process you go through when sitting down to write?
It's changed. I mean, my consistency is really good for writing, and it's unfortunately the thing in life that I'm terrible at. I'm a pretty high-strung, chaotic dude. So my process has changed over the years, some by necessity, some just by the fact that stuff quit working. I tend to be most productive in the morning. And I also, like I said earlier, I write linearly. I don't jump around if I can help it. I start at page 1 and just go forward. I tend to just make a lot of it up as I go. I don't pre-plan too terribly much. And that can be a lot of fun. It can also be hectic at times when you kind of have accidentally painted yourself into corners. I've been fortunate in that doesn't happen to me too much. Sometimes I feel like I'm just channeling another world that I didn't actually write any of this stuff. That that had already happened in another dimension, and somehow I'm just picking up the radio wave and just typing it down. No, I mean, I think consistency is important, but that's the hardest thing to grasp, especially when life. Yeah, I know. Hi, Huck. When life just keeps throwing entropy and chaos your way. I mean, it can be super hard. I think I've had a thing where it was, I'm going to write every day and hit a word count, 2,000 words every day, no weekends, 7 days a week. Okay. Do you come here? My dog is just like whining right at me. You can say hi. But come here, stop that. You're going to annoy people. Nowadays it doesn't have to be a ton. It just can't be none. That's just my thing. Like, I don't even worry about the count. I just can't have a day with a goose egg. You know, if it's 100 words and they're on the page, then that's better than 0. That's kind of the carpentry of it, like but as far as like the creative process, I try to read a lot of history and biography. So that is helpful. And that informs what I'm able to do going forward. So, you know, I spend my nights reading and then my days trying to like write. So, but no, my process has adapted. And I think that if I was able to stick with one thing, I'd probably be a lot faster. But I don't know if it's just like muscle confusion in working out or what. Let me let this pooch out real quick. I'll be right back. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, no, do it up. All good. Actually, we're gonna take just like 2 minutes. I'm gonna hit the bathroom real quick. Be right back. Here's a shitty commercial I made. No, you're good. We're gonna do 2 minutes because I'm gonna hit the bathroom real quick. I gotta take a shower. It really does feel so good on your face. Turn that off, and then we lock it so it doesn't set anything on fire. Depending on the size of your beard, the amount you use varies. I like to use 4 to 8 drops, usually around 6. This is the Viking Storm scent, which I really like, and more importantly, my fiance really likes. I won't make you guys sit through that. John's still letting the dog out, I think. Oh no, he's back. Yahtzee.
Yeah, just checking in on the kid, making sure everything's all right. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Chat, do we have any questions? What we want to ask? Actually, I think I ever sent it to you, John. If you go to the Twitch stream, you can probably see the chat yourself if you want.
Oh, I'm always afraid of that. People on there. This guy's boring.
No. My viewership is small but distinguished.
Oh, nice. Yes. I don't even know how to get to that thing, to be honest with you.
Oh, you're good. Let's see.
I don't have a Twitch account either, so I don't even know that I could view it. Oh.
That's not a full link because I didn't do that. There we go.
Boop, boop.
Ether wants to say hi to Huck. That's not a question.
I wish I could. He won't. Usually he'll jump up, but he's being really weird today.
He's camera shy.
He actually does hate it when I try to take his picture with a cell phone. So
Jumped on late, so I don't know what you already talked about. That's okay.
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, ask away. Can you talk about what you're working on now? This new book?
I don't know how interesting it is at this point. I guess I could try. Essentially what I'm trying to do is as different from Bastards as possible. So Bastards, by necessity, because of the way the world is, it's very crude, and this is going to sound really arrogant, but I had to dumb myself down to write it. Or more, I had to tap into more of a lizard brain, and you didn't want to use a bunch of like super.
Tell me what you did.
A little bit. It can be very breaking to have an uneducated cast of characters who live in a gang culture and then you're in your descriptions, you're using like words that they wouldn't use, even if it's not dialogue, even if it's. So I limited the vocabulary down, try to make it very pulpy and just very quick and dirty.
Yeah.
So there's part of me that just sort of wants to stretch again, and really just do something just the opposite of that. One of my favorite books ever is Dracula, which is weird because I'm not a horror person at all. I don't read modern horror. And I feel like that Dracula is a really misunderstood book. And spoiler, I'm not writing a vampire story, so don't jump the gun. I think a lot of people think they know that book, and they really don't. And because whether they've just seen movies or they think they've read it in high school or whatever. But what's interesting, Dracula is an epistolary book, like a lot of the books back then. So it's told through journals and actually recordings, because some of the transcripts from Dr. Seward's, speaking into a phonograph that's cutting a record. And so what's really interesting about Dracula is we see it as this like, Gothic Victorian horror novel, but in actuality, he was writing like cutting edge stuff. I mean, Stoker even sort of revels in that. The phonograph, the Winchester rifle, blood transfusions, all of these things that are in Dracula were like, that was tip of the spear at that point. So while we look back on it and it's cool to like think about Victorian era and all that, back then it was a super modern book. I mean, it was just very, and so this is a long answer to it. It's just hard to explain. So my problem with epistolary books is I'm not usually a fan of first person. And first person can be fine if you're not pretending like it's a journal. So in epistolary, the problem is that you're playing with time, because if I was reading a book that is a journal, in a real journal, obviously, the person who wrote it lived to write that scene. So your narrator, if there's another entry, is clearly still around. So it's difficult to put in a sense of menace or peril or, any of that tension, because it's like, oh, okay, well. And then the other thing, Right. And a lot of people have written epistolary books, but it's just epistolary in name only, meaning they pretend it's a journal, but then they just write it like a first person narrative. And so things are happening in the present tense, and it's like, I punched him in the face and then I dodged. And it's like, wait, are you recounting this later, or are you just telling me about it in real time, like, and just using first person?
Yeah.
So the idea that I have now is what I'm fascinated about is presenting a journal that does tell a story, but being very cognizant of the fact that the narrator is coming into it and recounting everything. And so the thing about journals is that you don't necessarily sit down and say, oh, I'm going to write this whole story in one go, right? That's a chronicle. So I don't want to do some guy coming in or character coming in and being like, okay, I need to get this story down. Here's how it happened, start to finish from memory. I want to actually do a real journal so that there are entries and things change as if we're seeing like every night he's coming in and writing it. And while that might not sound super interesting, I think it's a lot of form. There's a lot of form talk. But I think that there's some fun to be had there with the notion that we are getting this private look into someone's life, but also being very aware that they are bringing biases and fears and things to the table. So it's just, I'm doing like a secondary, it's fantasy. There's still going to be fantasy elements, but I'm want to tell it in a way where someone comes upon this journal and then has to go through this thing of seeing it unfold over time and realizing that, wow, I'm reading someone's journal from way back in the day. And so, it is really an exercise in form. And can I captivate an audience with that? Knowing that there are major pitfalls. So it's tricky because even right now, in trying to explain it, I feel like I'm already failing because it's like, how is that interesting, right? luckily, my agent's really on board with it and thinks it's a good move, and she's fascinated by it. So right now it is tough because it has to go against what I normally do, which is come up with a bunch of cool characters with some traits and then put them in a world and then see what happens. Just sort of let them run amok. I really do have to think this one out and plan this one out and get into the headspace of somebody who may or may not be telling the truth in their journal entry, because it's not about unreliable narrator or any of that. It's about, the fact that journals are also confessions. And so if you're someone who is worried about what's going to be read later, especially in a low tech world where the written word has a lot more power, like, nowadays, fake news and people are writing so much that it almost doesn't matter. But back in the day, a journal could be pretty damning, especially if you were suspected of something. If you look at it like the Inquisition type stuff or blasphemy or whatever. So if suddenly there's a written record by your own hand, that's and if you're aware of that when you're writing, and that's the thing, is I think we feel like that when people are doing a primary source like that, like, oh, I'm going to write this down, that we can actually think they're telling the truth. Well, the fact of the matter is I could write a journal right now and bury it in the backyard, and 600 years from now, if someone dug it up and read it, what would they think? I mean, would they, I could keep it very innocuous. I don't have to say like, oh, today, leprechauns like sprouted up out of the ground and I saved the president of Bolivia. Like, you don't have to get crazy. I could write a very normal life for my existence and make it all up. Right. I mean, I could be, it could be very, very banal. I could talk about my wife and kids, but tell no truth about any of them. And it's an interesting thing to me is the idea of when we find something old that seems to have been written by somebody, that we just accept it all. I think if we found like a bunch of new Abe Lincoln letters, okay, Honest Abe, right? We'd be like, holy shit, this is amazing. This is the biggest discovery in American history of the generation. We have a whole cache of new letters from Abe Lincoln. Why are we assuming all that is true? And I don't want to be like a fake news person, but what I'm saying is that people bring insecurities and worries and stuff to the page sometimes, not all the time. Look at
makes it real.
Well, and look at Soldiers' Letters Home.
Mm-hmm.
Soldiers' Letters Home to mom don't usually say, well, today we got ambushed in a firefight and I lost all of my squad and I was the only survivor. I'm having a lot of doubts that I'm ever going to make it out of here alive. Like, yeah, maybe a couple guys said that, but most Soldiers' Letters Home, you just don't want to freak mom out or dad, or
or dump
I'm
that,
doing good.
Dump that on them.
Weather's been tough. So that's what's got me currently very fascinated is this idea. And it's very much more of a heady thing than half orcs riding hogs and telling dick jokes. But what's nice about it is that it's not a series. It is one book. And yeah, maybe I'm going for something a little bit more highbrow and flying against what I was just talking about earlier about how fantasy has gotten away from the magical orcs and elves and all that. And it has. So there's part of me, and maybe my timing will be off again, who knows, but there's part of me that sort of wants to do that very thought-provoking, deep dive fantasy and maybe garner some of that highbrow attention, like, New York Times or whatever. And that's a stupid thing to chase, but the desire for what I want to do is genuine. I'm not just doing it for that. I just think that there's potential there. So, I'm swinging the other way on the pendulum. It's like, half orcs fucking and fighting and, and then now I'm going to go over here and do something a little bit more, academic, but hopefully still that people get pulled into.
So is the journal based on someone in a high fantasy setting, or like it'll be a low, it'll be more urban fantasy spooky. It'll be more
gothic horror. It's not going to be a lot of spell slinging and a lot of different creatures. There may be like a little bit, but where I'm looking right now, again, I always have to jump off of histories. I'm looking at like mid 1600s Netherlands, like, right as the Dutch East India Company is starting to expand and just play off of that. So the world is much larger. Trade is a big thing. I don't personally want to add a lot of racial tension into this book. My Bastards, even though it's fantasy, is basically all about racial tension. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, I'm just worn out. So I don't want to bring in anything, even though in the real world that was part of it, slave trade and all that. I don't want to do any of that. So I'm very loosely taking just the idea that the Dutch were really starting to explore and commerce, and we really were in that early modern period where we were about to super explode. But for me, it's more about a tech level. It's like, what is available? What are the weapons? What is the mode of transportation? Mode of lighting? And so that's always fun. So, but it'll be more, and the gamers who I assume are a good part of your audience. It's more in line of like Blades in the Dark, like more in line of the fantasy heist.
Yep.
But a heist told through a participant's journal, but not all in one sitting. And also someone who is aware that this could be used against them, but still has a need to risk writing it down. And that's what's fun to play with. It's like someone who's desperate enough to write it down, but also with the knowledge that they need it in some way, but it could also screw them over. And that's what's really got me kind of fascinated. And I don't know if I can pull it off. So if I don't pull that off, then I'll just write something else. I'll just be like, I'll write a superhero book. I don't know, which usually don't do well, but you can
fair,
crunk.
So jumping back to Ethers, jumped on late, so I don't know what you've already talked about. Feeling a little overwhelmed with options. I guess, where do you start with self-publishing? And we kind of touched on this. And John, you had said that when you had started doing it, it was before self-publishing kind of became really accessible
and streamlined. Yeah, I mean, it was, but I think the real answer to that is, and I don't want to be glib, make sure you have a book done, because a lot, I'm not trying to be glib. A lot of people I've met over the years, they show up and they want to know about it. And I don't know that this is the person asking the questions thing. I'm not trying to say that, but enjoy the writing process, because if you start worrying about the publishing process too soon, look, you're never going to get that first book ever again. And maybe I'm romanticizing it. We all have survivor bias. But with you, Drew, like writing Exiled Air, that when I had no idea really what I was going to do, that I'll never get that purity back. It was just so fun. I was just writing. It's like world and every day. And like, and a lot of people I've met would come to me in cons, and I do a panel, and they'd say like, I'm thinking about writing a book, but I don't know how I want to publish it. I'm like, you're already cart before the horse. You got to pump the brakes. Mm-hmm. Think about writing the book. You need to write the book. Write the book, then worry about what you're going to do with it. But a lot of people kind of want to guarantee, and I get that. But here's the thing: it's publishing. Doesn't matter which way you go. There is no guarantee. It's tough. Self-publishing's tough. Traditional publishing's tough. It's all tough. And it's hard to keep that in our brains, because as a culture, as a consumer culture, we're so wired to success stories. We're addicted to them. And it's all we really see, right? We don't see, at least in America, I think Europe's a little different, but we don't see just the working artists, right? I mean, I was laughing the other day because my publisher Instagram account was just plugging Matthew McConaughey's new book. And I was like, why? He doesn't need it. like the absolute last guy who needs marketing help, right? Why aren't you plugging? So it's tough. Like we it's so hard to not look at just the success stories and forget that there are people out there. It's always fascinating to me when I tell people what I do, and they say, have you written anything I've heard of? And I'm kind of an asshole. I'm like, doesn't that question answer itself? Like, if I said, my name's Jonathan French, and what do? I'm a writer. And or if I just said, my name's Jonathan French, and then you go, oh, like the writer. Then it's like, yeah, clearly you've heard it. Like, and then people say, well, maybe I've heard the book, but not you. It's like, that's not how it works. So I think that if you that is a short version is, don't worry about publishing, worry about writing the manuscript. Now, if you have a manuscript, let's just say that that's the case, you're done. And you've got a book you're proud of and you're super excited about it and you want to self-publish it. That's the right route for you. Then I think that depending on where you are in your tech level, if you're very proficient with computers, then you're good. You just now need to know where to go. You just need to have a little map. Okay. But if you're not, then you're going to have to learn a whole other suite of skills or find someone who does. Regardless, what I would say is find your people, meaning find writers in the self-publishing sphere who write what you write. And if your first notion is, well, no one writes what I write, okay, that could be true because self-publishing is a great place for books that are kind of tough to quantify. A lot of big publishing likes to put things in boxes and genres, and self-publishing is a great place. We talked about Dirk Ashton. His books they're hard to market in the traditional space. But in self-publishing, they do great. So, and some books have transitioned. I'm getting off on this, but like Josiah Bancroft with the Books of Babel series, his were like that, super unique, almost impossible to even pitch in a traditional space. But he did well in self-publishing and then transitioned, and now he's traditional just like me, and people are loving it and they see the brilliance of it. But regardless of how unique your work is and how unequivocal your writing is, you could have written the most original thing. You still have to market it somewhere. Even Amazon is going to make you tag it with certain types of genres. They're going to say, well, is this fantasy? Is this young adult? You can't avoid that. So knowing that on the consumer end, you're going to have to plug it a certain way, that will tell you who your tribe of authors are. And once you know who they are, then you go find them and you get in Slack channels and you get in Facebook groups and you do whatever it is you can and you get good advice and you shore up you are ignorant. And if you're not ignorant, then that all you have to do is figure out what platforms do I want to self-publish on? All of them? Do I want to go broad and do Ingram and create Smashwords and do I want to hit everything, or do I want to give Kindle the exclusive thing? Because that's the big elephant in the room, right? That's the Microsoft. Like Amazon and Kindle are the easiest and most accessible way to do it, and that's where most of the readers are going. But they also have this thing where it's like, well, if you make your book exclusive to us as an ebook, then there's all these benefits. And that is the stuff that changes. Those algorithms change every day, and they're constantly doing, all that. But anyway, I think that the important thing to do is come up with a plan. It is a business plan. Do I care about having print books, or do I just want an ebook? Do I care about having audio? Quite frankly, I think you should, because audio is a massive market, and it is the only growing market in publishing if you listen to some industry people. So, come up with a business plan. What am I going to do? What is my marketing plan? But how to start? Step one, finish your damn book.
Sorry, I was laughing earlier because I remembered you had just gotten Arms Fall Done, the first book. And I remember I was in a Best Buy and they were selling Kindles, and I just walked around and searched for your book, put it on the page. Yeah. Search for your book, put it on the page. Like I did.
You left it there.
It was like,
yeah, I remember.
I'm gonna do this every time I can.
Yeah, it's guerrilla.
Because I knew you were doing like grassroots, because you were hitting everything.
Yeah, no, yeah. And people do that. They'll go and they'll turn, like now they'll say like, oh, I went to Barnes & Noble, I turned it face out because it's just spine in, so I'll turn it like to where the cover. Yeah, and they they'll find it in a Barnes & Noble like that, and then they'll stick it like that. And it's like
I may have done that a couple of times too.
and it pisses off the bookstore because they're like, no, we have it this way for a reason. Yeah,
It's like, I know. I'm doing it this way for a reason.
Yeah,
I know the
right.
guy. Leave me alone. Okay, back. Chat. Any other questions? We got half an hour left. It flew by. Only about 45 minutes was me dealing with sound issues. Fucking hell.
Sorry.
Sure. Okay. Apparently Eric has a question.
It's good friends. They're filling the void.
Wait, it works now? Oh. No, it doesn't. I'm still hearing myself, but it's fine. I've moved past it. It's reverse ear prompt. It's fine. I'm just blocking it out.
That's so hard to do. I can't do it on phone calls.
Oh my God. It was happening twice. I was getting double feedback. I'm like, what the fuck?
That's even worse.
And then Eric is like, okay, hang on. And I had him on in the background. He's like, try this. I'm like, well, got rid of one of them. That's easier.
Yeah, that is.
I'm going to have to, I don't know. We talked about it. He's like, I don't know. This is all good. This is all good. This is all good. I don't know what's happening. I was like, yeah, I don't fucking get it either. It is one of the, like you were just talking about, learning a new set of skills, for self-publishing. I have learned a ton about streaming over the last year, just in broadcasting. In this program, OBS, what we can do with it and what is possible. And Eric's a graphic designer, so he has overlays and stuff that he's made himself, and all the ones that I have, I've gotten from other places. But even just putting them together, like putting your frames and stuff together, it took me like 5 minutes because I did the work and I have all that shit prepped already. It's a lot easier. Question: Are you part of the process for picking your own cover? Also, how do you feel about art being inside of a novel, say maps, character art, and so on? And then Ether asks, what's your favorite part of what you do?
Okay. All right. So cover question. It's an awesome one. So no. No.
Short answer, no.
This is one of these things where you want to play nice because, you don't want to ruffle feathers. My editors and my publishers are great and they want me to succeed, but they like to pretend that there's some input that I get into it, but there's not. It's you like option A or option A. I mean, so, and that can change. I mean, I don't want to paint. That could be different in the next book. It could be different for another author with a different editor. If they do it in-house, you might be able to have a little bit of time to mess with it. But the problem is that the production schedule, it's weird in traditional production, is both a 7-month process, but it's also a lot of hurry. So it seems protracted and long, but they're really bust and hump at the same time because there's so many moving parts. Bastards had a very awesome cover when it was self-published, if I will say so myself, because Raymond Swanland did it, and he is the. I fought hard to keep that cover, and publishers were not interested to have that cover.
Let me interrupt you real quick. Is the contest for mystery books in San Diego, is that still happening?
As far as I know, because it should go. It should go until pre-orders stop, and pre-orders don't stop until the book is launched in September.
Okay, keep talking. I'm going to find the tweet that you sent that out at. I'm going to put that in chat so people can see it.
Yeah, no problem.
Sorry to interrupt.
But they wanted to go a different direction, and so they showed me some things, and I was never really pleased. But they right or wrong were saying, "Oh, you're just still stuck on your self-published cover." And I said, well, no, I mean, if you showed me something better, I wouldn't be stuck, show me something better. And I just never felt like they were. But what is interesting is if you look at most books, if you're a reader and you look at, especially fantasy books, a lot of them will have different covers in the US than they do in the UK, because those are the two big markets for fantasy in the English speaking world, right? So you've got a New York publisher and a London publisher. And usually the covers are different. Well, if you notice, if you look up the Bastards books, they're not. They're almost exactly the same. Like the type is different, but the image isn't. So the only difference is in the US, it came out in hardback. And then in the UK, they only did it in trade paperback. Okay, so, but the image, the dude, is exactly the same. And the reason why that happened was America, my American publishers were trying to do something different, but also not have me be upset with it. And we just couldn't come to an agreement. And so in that regard, I was sort of involved. But Britain was just like, this is what we're doing. And I was like, all right. So since they didn't ask me, they just sort of said, we hope you like this. America just said, okay, great. We're going to do that too. So America ended up just copying the British cover over. And so that's why they're not different. But anyway, it's probably not interesting to anybody else, but it's a tricky balance. Like they would say that they give me as much input as they possibly can, and it is their ultimate goal to please the author. But at the end of the day, most authors will tell you that it's sort of an illusion of choice. Like really what they want is they want to show you something and have you be super happy about it. If you're not super happy about it, they're probably not going to change anything. They're just unhappy that you're unhappy. And then everyone's unhappy. And it's this weird thing. I will tell you flat out, like book 2, like why she's wearing furs in the south of Spain, I don't know. I mean, she's literally in full on Robb Stark fur.
That's why. Robb Stark, you said the name. That's
right.
Why.
But like in the south of Spain, in a book that is sweaty and hot, and I talk about dust and saddle sores, and it's just like, okay. So I mean, they kind of just do what they think is best. I will tell you though, on the bright side, that Andrew, have I showed you book 3 yet? The cover? It's out. Never mind.
I've seen.
Everyone.
Yeah, I've seen the tweets of it, but do you have a physical copy?
It's out. I forgot that it had gotten launched. It's been like, so that one I actually fought hard because I said, look, I need Oates to be big. I was like, he has to be big. And at first they shot me this model and, they're showing me like, well, here's the model we're thinking of using. And I was like, that guy makes me look buff. Like, what are you doing? Like, and they're like, no, we'll change it in Photoshop. And I was like, that's a terrible idea. They're like, no, it'll be fine. I'm like, no. That is a terrible idea. And so I didn't think I would actually win. But I sort of went on strike. I was like, I'm not gonna answer any more questions about the cover. I just quit responding because I didn't know what to do. Because in the past I would voice my displeasure and they would just like do it anyway. And so I was like, okay. And look, I hope no one's seeing this as sour grapes or me whining. Like I find this funny. Like I think it's all part of the process. I'm not trying to like I don't know that I would do any better. Like it's just authors are tough to please with covers. And publishers will tell you like, well, we, think we know the market better. So, but anyway, I fought hard to make sure book 3 I was like, look, Oates is described in the book as having muscles in his shit. Like that is the exact line in the book. I was like, he shits muscles. So don't give me some dude who makes me look rock. And this guy they got was like a model and he was a handsome man, but like he was very like he was scrawny. And so I was like, okay. And thankfully they came and they said, well, we're worried that an overly muscular man on the cover will make it look like a romance novel. And I was like, are you going to make him look like a half orc? And they said, yeah. I said, then don't worry about it. It's not a romance novel. I mean, it was just this weird, like, I don't know. So I will say that
I remember I understand what you're talking about too, because like if someone has read the books up until now and they see Oates on the cover and they're like, the fuck is this? Like, it's immediately going to be a turnoff to your fan base that love you and want to read this book. I totally get that.
Right.
I remember there's a battle in the first book and Jackal's fighting somebody, and all of a sudden the dude he's fighting fucking leaves his saddle and like gets stapled to a tree or something with a spear, like hand thrown, and immediately in his head he thinks Oates, because there's nobody big enough that could have done that aside from him. Like, he doesn't even have to see where it came from. It's like, Oates had my back. He just killed that guy.
Yeah,
like,
that's absolutely right.
That is something that needs to be shown in cover art if that is the main character of the book. Absolutely.
Right. And that was and luckily they said, like, okay, you know, at this point, you know, like you're saying, Drew, like the people that are reading book 3 are the people who've been with us the whole ride. So let's make sure. And I will tell you, book 3's cover is the best of the crop, in my opinion. Now, if I was still self-publishing, would I have done it this way? Absolutely not. I mean, I don't like, personally, model photography that's been manipulated. That's just not my bag. Like, I want artwork. I want, like, hand-drawn or...
The cover... Can you hold up the cover for Bastards, the good one?
Which one?
The self-published.
Oh, yes. Hold on.
It's right under Battles of the Medieval.
Right here, hang on. Do.
Like, it's just awesome.
Yeah. No, I mean, this was my bucket list. I wanted to work with Raymond Swanland. He was my one and only pick when I self-published the book. I liquidated my savings to pay for this. I mean, and he's a great guy, but he knows what he's worth, and he also retains rights to the image. I'm allowed to use it for a book cover, and that's it. So I don't even own this, right? So I would have continued to do that. They opted not to. And so I'm involved, but it's really just like, you know, here it is. We hope you like it. And I've learned the hard way that if I don't like it, I get labeled as like difficult. And so I just sort of like go with the flow. But I will say, I really think book 3's cover is chef's kiss. If you are going with this style, book 3's cover is fucking great. So I'm not really involved. I mean, I have to be kind of a diva if I want to be involved. Really, they're just looking for a stamp of approval. So there's that. There was something else before. What's my favorite part of the process?
How do you feel about art being inside of a novel, like maps, territory, and so on?
I don't mind it. I mean, personally, I don't have a map in my book because I was self-published and didn't know how to get one done, and I couldn't do it. And honestly, at that point, I didn't feel like the world was big enough to merit one. And I have a pet peeve where I think maps are I don't have a problem with them, except for me personally, I reference them too much, and then I find it pulls me out of the writing. So I left it out, and I said, you know, I don't want to have to keep going back to it, so I left it out. I don't care if they're in there. I've learned if I don't want to deal with it, I ignore them. I will say in the self-publishing space, maps can come back to bite you, because I've seen friends of mine who have maps in their books get wrecked on Amazon reviews because people like, it contained the most childish looking map. Do they think I can't remember a forest, 2 cities, and a mountain range? And it's like, yeah, I mean, that's not good enough. Like, Tolkien kind of set the bar, and if your world isn't big enough or fleshed out enough and your map is just really limited, then it kind of cheapens your whole thing, right? It kind of lowers the level.
It's a detriment. Yeah.
It is a detriment. And so world building like that takes time. And so if you really like, if a map is part of your brand and you've got this world you've been developing and you know that it's just, then go for it. And I think I think artwork inside of books is great. I mean, Mervyn Peake illustrated all the Gormenghast books himself. Tolkien did that too. That's fallen out of fashion. I just think because a lot of people don't do it. So, but it doesn't bother me. I think if you have a way to do it and do it right, go for it. I think that's awesome. And let's see, the favorite. Did they say process or just how was it worded?
Let's see. What's the favorite part of what you do? Drinking on the job. Wait, you weren't asking me. No, I was not.
I can drink on the job and have. No, the favorite is just the knowledge that I don't ever I get to do what I do and it's just me. It's sometimes very hard and sometimes very lonely, but I have to constantly tell myself the job that Drew and I had was the best job I've ever had. It
was pretty great.
To this day, I regret the way I worded in the acknowledgments of my very first book. I tried to acknowledge some of my day jobs, and I regret the way I worded it because I said the day jobs I have suffered over the years to get to this point, and then I listed them, and that was really unfair to Northwest Drapery because I should have not worded it that way. Because I didn't suffer, that job allowed me to figure out that I could be a writer just based on, and I know they didn't know that. I'm not saying they gave me the job we're giving this job so you'll end up being a writer. They didn't have a clue, but it was cool that I was able to use it the way I did. And like I said, I've never had that again. I've never had a job that paid me and also I could write at the same time. Drew remembers I actually left Northwest for 6 months to work at Games Workshop. And I thought that was going to be my new career. I was a Warhammer fanboy from the age of 9. And I thought, I'm going to work my way up and I'm going to make it to the studio. And that was the worst 6 months of my life. The job sucked balls. And I didn't write a single day in 6 months.
Good healthcare though.
Great healthcare, but I didn't need it at the time. Now I'm 40 and I wish I had it. But no, I think that my favorite thing is just having to being in control of my own career. It is, the buck still stops here. Yeah, I have a lot more help than I did, but it's very nice to be able to know that I don't have to go in. I don't have to punch a clock. I don't have to be beholden to anybody. I don't have TPS reports to write. I don't have. You got that one. It is a legit and it is an enviable place. And I am very aware that it is a place that a lot of people are trying to get to and are frustrated because they are struggling. And I know that unfortunately there are many people who will never, ever get there. And it doesn't mean they don't deserve it. It doesn't mean that there aren't great books out there that don't. But I think that to kind of bring it all around, or at least try to, I think that's why the self-publishing space, the modern self-publishing space, is so incredibly important, because the more delivery systems we have, the less those works, the fewer number of those works will go undiscovered. We won't have as many books that just never see the light of day, or web comic or comics, or, because we have things like web comics, we have things like serialization and self-publishing. And I think that, unfortunately, the nature of the publishing industry that is traditional over the last several, a couple hundred years, is a numbers game. They can only publish so many books a year. They can only afford to give, and they're only going to get eyes on so many. And a lot of books just don't get the eyes on them, the right eyes at the right time. Doesn't mean they're bad. It just means they missed somewhere along the way. Just somebody didn't see them. And I think that with what's going on now, I think it's really encouraging that people can build fan bases and make their living. I mean, there are writers who only their fans know who they are, and they're making way more money than I am. They're not household names. We could riddle them off right now. No one would know them, but they've got 100,000 fans out there who are buying everything that they're writing. And so they're making a living, and they're not, and that's fantastic. I think that's great. And the more people who can be in control of their own lives like that, I think the better we are as a society. And I'm not trying to wax poetical about that. The less people that we have in the machine, the less people we have busting hump to make a bunch of shareholders money, and working in the making hourly wages while their CEOs are getting millions of dollars in bonuses every year. The less people we have doing that, who have a creative outlet and find a way to make that creative outlet pay them. To me, it's just like Etsy or anything. If you figure out I make birdhouses and I can fucking sell them on Etsy and make a decent living, that is awesome. And that's what I think is great about where we are with this. I know that I could not get another book deal through Penguin and I would still be okay, because I've already learned how to self-publish. I've made contacts within self-publishing. So right now I like where I am. I'm very blessed. I love working with a big publisher. I love my agent. She's fantastic. I learn a lot from these people. They're very passionate about books. They're not the faceless, heartless, giant New York publishing that people make them out to be, at least in my experience. And, but if they all disappeared tomorrow, I could go back to doing it on my own, and I think I'd be all right. I think I could make a living, and that to me is cool.
She also said, I mean, also favorite part of the process, the process of writing. Like, what's your favorite part?
Drinking on the job.
Drinking on the job, solid.
No, I really like the start of. I really like the start of every new book. I love starting a new book, and I hate when I can't. I'm going to do something I hate. I hate it when people. I hate it when people answer a writing question with a movie. Like, I think that's a little like gauche, but I am not a giant Star Wars fan. Like, I like it, but I'm not like a huge Star Wars fan. But I will say that what I love about that franchise is always Empire and the beginning, because I'm old enough to remember that was so out of left field. Like, I mean, nowadays we just see that as like, but at the time it was like time had passed. We weren't even sure how much time. Suddenly they're on a snow planet. Luke's riding on a damn camel that's making these weird grabble sounds, and like Han and Leia are like fighting like they know each other, and then Luke gets hit by a Yeti. I mean, it was all just like, wait, what, where are we? Like this, it was crazy. But what was cool about it was instantly like, oh, stuff has happened. Like, has happened. Like we're not having to catch up. Like we're not going to catch up. There has been time. And I just love that feeling of, I always try to recapture that feeling every time I start a book of like, something has already happened. There is a bunch of stuff that's already gone down, and there's a bunch of interesting stuff in front of that's happening in my experience. Like, whether you're watching a movie or whether you're reading it, interesting things is going into my eyes and into my brain. And so for me, I love starting sequels because I'm always able to try to deliver that weird Hoth experience of like, wait, it's the same characters. I know the characters, but I have no idea where we're at. I think the wife is talking to him.
It's like, when you're done, can you help me put my chair together? Which means the chair just arrived.
Well, we are done, I think.
It's true. Yeah, we're getting on to 3:00. Any last questions? Oh, wait, I think Eric might have had another one up here. How do you feel about audio versions of books in the current work at home and podcast climate?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Like, how does the work
Eric,
how does the work at
are you
home
asking like? Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine. I just don't understand.
Eric, are you talking about like, because people are at home and have time, how do you feel about people listening to audiobooks instead of actually just reading the book? I'm not sure I understand it either. I also don't know if Eric's still here. House, did you leave? Well, we wait to get clarification on that.
I started going off about Hoth, and everybody checked out.
No. Bunch of Star Wars fans. Gang, I linked his Twitter where he's talking about the San Diego bookstore. Okay, had to run back upstairs. All right. Clarification is imminent.
Nice.
Well, we're waiting for that. Are you playing anything right now? Do you have any games going on right now?
No, I was in 2 games at the start of COVID. I was playing in with my Chicago group. We had 2 different guys running 2 different things. We were Forbidden Lands we were doing. I was playing in Forbidden Lands, which was fun. And then one of my Chicago buddies pulled 2nd edition unrevised, like, well, no, not even 2nd, 1E AD&D out of the fucking pail.
Ooh.
Yeah. And like started running it. And I was like, I realized all of us sort of laughed. We were like, I don't think any of us ever really knew how to play this game. It's so grand.
Do you like audiobooks, and how do you feel about them being consumed versus reading? Are your books in audio yet?
Okay, yeah. So I will try to make this brief, but audiobooks are huge right now because they are massively popular, and they're the place that most people get their it's the only place that's growing. Like the margins are growing, like they're seeing more profit in audio than everything else is kind of stagnated or is even shrinking. So used to, when you would get a traditional deal with a publisher, audio rights were something that you didn't necessarily have to give up. Like right now, I have film rights and graphic novel rights. My publisher doesn't have those. If someone comes to me for a movie or a graphic novel, I can still go talk to them. It used to be that way with audio because audio wasn't that big, so they didn't really care. It was like the author can keep audio rights. We don't really give a crap. Nowadays, if you try to get a traditionally published book deal and you try to take audio off the table, it's a non-starter. No Big Four, no New York or London publisher will talk to you if you're not going to give them audio because it's such a moneymaker right now. So that is industry knowledge. But as far as me personally, I don't have a bias against audiobooks. I have not yet transitioned. I've listened to maybe 2 in my whole life. But I think for people that are commuting, I think for people who people who are blind and even if you're not commuting, if any way that you are experiencing a story, any way that you are becoming more literate, I think is great. My audiobook narrator for Gray Bastards just moved to Atlanta and we're now friends. I didn't think I'd ever meet the guy, but now we're hanging out on the deck, social distancing. And I personally can't listen to audio of my own work. I tried, but it's even weirder than watching your own sex tape. Like it's just hearing somebody else read your book. And Will does a great job. But I noticed that once I started listening, I would then go try to write the next Bastards book, and I would hear him in my head. New words.
Okay.
And it was like, that's someone else. That's not even me anymore. And it was so I've been told he knocks it out of the park, and I'm sure he does, and he's an awesome guy, but that's my only bias. I have no problem. I think it's great. I think audiobooks are awesome. Long may they reign. But personally, no, I don't consume a lot of them.
All right. Well, it's 2:59 by my clock, gang, so we're going to wrap it up. John, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Like I said, granted, there were a lot of audio issues, but the time kind of flies by, so I appreciate you sticking it out.
Especially when you have a guest who gives super long answers.
Yeah, that's why I asked you to do it.
Fair enough.
I think I've talked maybe 5 minutes this whole time. It's great. aside from the new book, do you have anything coming up that we can look for? I linked the thing for mystery books up there.
Yes, no, Mysterious Galaxy. If you know, they're a cool bookstore. If you pre-order books and don't want to do it from one of your local people, you know, pre-order a book from them or just order a book from them. They're a cool spot. I hope they stick around. No, Free Bastards is coming out in September. Hopefully everyone will dig it. Other than that, I'm just trying to work on the next thing, but it's slow. It's just a slow process. So.
Fair enough.
I'm going to go and get my vaccine tomorrow. That's the most exciting thing for me.
Nice. Good. I'm still trying to get mine. All right. Take us back to single cam for a minute. John, don't leave yet. I'll be right back. Okay, gang. That's it. Eric, you want to link the spot for tonight for GaryCon? And John, you're still here. If you're interested in watching some GaryCon stuff tonight, we're going to be playing a game actually in the world that we're playing in for our Thontia game. It's it's like Lycanthrope Hunters tonight. It's a one shot. It's going to be fun. But gang, thank you so much for hanging out. Next week, my buddy Brady is going to be on the show. He is he's in the writer's room for Grownish. So Allie, if you're still here, this one's for you. We've got some script writers coming on, and yeah, should be fun. So thanks again, everybody, for hanging out. Sorry, I keep hearing my own voice in my head. It's fucking me up. But wear your mask, stay safe, strength and luck. See you later.